in the military. I'm a graduate from St. Xavier University. I went to Loyola Law School. I have a master's in jurisprudence also. I am currently enrolled in Bacone College in Muskogee, Oklahoma. I'm taking classes on American Indians, and I'm looking to help strengthen the Native American community. I think my business, I've been in business for 30 years and a lobbyist. I understand how to get around City Hall, how to get around the State House and the Federal House. I think I can bring those relationships with me to um, help straighten the ties between the Native Americans and the government. I mean, it's a fact of life. We have to deal with them. Um, I think we need the time now. I feel is right. I mean, there's a wave going on right now, and we need to catch that wave. I think I understand a lot of the Native American ways. I also have a house in Oklahoma. My father was born and raised on tribal lands in Oklahoma. I still have a house in Oklahoma. I'm very active in our tribe too. I go to Sundance Tribal Council meetings, so I'm around it. I understand it, and I see there's a huge void out there. Um, between the Native American community and government and trying to get stuff done through the government. I'm very strong with politics, business. I know probably most of the people in power. If not, I know most of the bureaucrats. I've been around. I grew up in politics here in Chicago. My grandfather was an alderman. My uncle was a county commissioner. I worked for Congressman Lipinski for 25 years, so I understand how to get around, how to do things, how to make things happen, and I think that's what we need to look at. We need to focus on getting the community moving forward, getting we got to get these kids educated. We have to push these kids towards education. Being a high school dropout, and I'm sure Lynn can agree, you value your education. You don't understand um, the value and the stigma of being a dropout. We need to push these people because these kids need a good mentors. They need good mentors. They need somebody to look up to. They need somebody that is going to give them a shove when they need a shove. We need to get these kids educated. Education is the key to all of our nations. I mean, I see it in my own tribe. The dropout rate is somewhere in the 70%, which I think is horrific. We need to motivate these kids. We need to pull them up by the bootstraps, and we need to get them ready, because I mean the time is right now, and you know we're gonna have to uh, give these people a push and make them better people so they could serve their tribe and serve their families. So with that, I'll close out. I know we're running a little bit late, but thank you very much for hearing me and listening to my story. And if anybody's got any questions, please reach out to me at any time. Thank you very much.
Hey, Terry, we actually did have a couple questions come in for you. One question was, what do you lobby for?
The defense industry and a couple of banks.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions for Mr. Cornell? I believe this is a question. What about reconnecting the community together? I guess that was, I'm assuming the question is, how would you go about reconnecting the community together?
I think what we need to do, we need to, I don't know about the other tribes, but I'm sure most of the tribes and natives fight amongst each other, which I never quite understood. Growing up on the south side of Chicago, we had neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods were strong. We need to strengthen our neighborhoods inside each tribe, inside all of our tribes, and we need to all work in lockstep together to help each other. I mean, there's some feuds that go back years that I just don't quite understand. Fighting amongst yourself, you're given our tribe, the Cheyenne Arapahoes, were put together so they could destroy each other, And just like I preach to everybody, you're giving the government what they want. You can't fight each other. We need to all lock arms and all work with each other. And if there's problems, we need to work them out in private and put the people back on the right track.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Terry. I don't see any other different questions than what you shared. Um, one moment, Arlene, we're about to add you as a panelist. Okay. Arlene, can you go ahead and turn on your video if you would like, and you should be able to unmute yourself now. Okay. Hi, Arlene. Can you test your audio? Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Hi, everyone.
Okay, perfect. We can hear you.
Okay, great.
If you, we're just doing introductions. If you want to introduce yourself, we have folks on Zoom and we have folks here in person. Share about yourself, your tribal affiliation, and anything you would like the members to know about you being one of our candidates for the board.
Okay. I am Arlene Duncan. I am an enrolled member of White Earth Reservation in Minnesota. I also am a veteran, Marine Corps veteran. I served for 8 years, military police, but I started in warehouse supply. I currently work at the VA as a criminal investigator. I live in Chicago. I moved here in 2010.
Okay. Anything else you would like to share for members to know about you and why you want to join the board or why you applied for the board?
I applied for the board. I've been interested in the American Indian Society. I participated in the Native American Women Warriors for about 4 years. We marched in the uh, President Obama's inauguration, and we were very active in making sure that Native American women had a voice in the military community, that we supported those that have MST questions or MST counseling that they needed, or any type of mental health for Native American men and women. But and when I moved to Chicago, I did feel a little isolated because I was away from my reservation and a lot of the women that I had been working with the Native American Women Warriors. Working at the VA, I have connected a little bit with other Native Americans, and I did serve as the Native American rep for not only Chicago, but the Los Angeles area, and tried to make sure that during the Native American History Month that I brought in not only the history of Native Americans in the military, but of course the communities that we lived in. So asking to come on board, I really just want to be able to stay in touch with my community that I live in now, um, and help in any way that I can.
Okay. Thank you, Arlene. Do we have any questions from members in person or on Zoom? Have any questions for Arlene? You should type it into the chat box, and it must be through the chat that you would have to ask your question, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Arlene. I am going to pause for 1 second. We have a video from our fourth board applicant. I just need to pull it up in one moment, so just give me a moment, please.
is Robin Niklinski, and I am currently a candidate for the board of directors. I just wanted to introduce myself. I do apologize that I'm not able to attend the Zoom meeting today. I do have prior commitments here today. I am a member of the Hickory Apache Nation, which is out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It is about 3 hours south of Albuquerque, to kind of give you an idea. I recently moved to Chicago, Illinois, back in September. So I definitely want to get involved in the Native American community. When I lived in Albuquerque, I wasn't able to do that because there wasn't things that were in the city for natives. Everything was on the reservation, and being that I was 3 hours away, that wasn't really possible. So now that I'm in Chicago, I think it's great that there's an American Indian Center. It's here in the city. I would like to be on the board of directors so I can help my Native American community in any way needed. I like to event plan. I'm good at communicating. I've currently been a paralegal for 3 years now, so I work with clients every day. So I think that would be good to be on the board of directors. I think that'd be very beneficial. And yeah, I look forward to meeting everyone and hopefully being on the board of directors.
Okay, I hope everyone saw the video. If you could put in the chat box that went through just fine. We had a couple questions in person for some of the board candidates.
Do you have any questions? Please raise your hand. Go ahead, Christine. Her name is Robin Niklinski. Just a little bit about Robin before it cut off. I don't know if she got to tell you, but Robin also has her master's in jurisprudence as well. So we have three people with their master's in jurisprudence, and I know Arlene. I'm looking at Arlene's. Arlene is also in the process of her master's degree as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, right, Arlene? Criminal justice, right? Or business? I forgot.
You're correct, criminal justice. I'm waiting to hear back from Bethune-Cookman for their answer if I got accepted. So for their master's program.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Vince, I seen you had a question as well.
Okay, so the question to all the candidates were if you could share about any current or past community or organization board experience, if you had any past board experience for any community or organization. Let's go with Lynn for that one first.
Yes, I was on the board for the Milwaukee American Indian Domestic Violence Task Force.
Okay, thank you. Arlene, same question for you.
Yes, I worked as a domestic and sexual assault advocate on my reservation and was on the board for the community involvement that we came to St. Paul, Minneapolis, and worked with the FBI task force in making sure that Native American women had a voice in all communities as far as domestic violence, and that we're not forgotten.
Okay, thank you, Arlene. And Terry, same question.
Yes, I served on the NIA Center for Developmentally Disabled on the South Side for 10 years. I'm currently the commander of the American Legion post 1993 out on the South Side. I've done fundraising for them for both of them. I'm still work very closely with both organizations, and I've done a lot of fundraising. I've done a lot with Misericordia. I'm trying to think. The list is pretty long. I'm a pretty active guy. I keep myself pretty much going all the time. If I see something that needs help, I just kind of jump in.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
Terry, there was just a follow-up. The question was, what do you lobby for? What issues are you lobbying for?
We already answered that
Did
question.
you answer that? Okay. And
Currently,
then did you answer the defense
currently right
industry?
now, I lobby for a couple of defense companies, and they are dealing with, I don't know, with weapon systems. I work for a mortgage banking company and a banking company, and I do all the regulatory and compliance. I deal with all the bureaucrats, and if there's legislation coming through, I usually jump in on it.
Thank you. And then Lynn, we had a question come in that says, you mentioned no shame in traditional role. Can you elaborate on what you mean by traditional role?
Yes, thank you for the question. I can see how that might have been taken out of context or has the potential to, you know, based on, you know, our history in that, you know, people thought that they had to change us somehow. But what I mean about that and what I meant actually is that when I talk to people and I'm trying to launch my home decor ideas, it's all about incorporating not only traditional things that are of importance to us or things that we need in our homes, but it's also to reiterate and to mention to people, specifically women, because I feel like sometimes our women struggle with just taking that role and really embracing it, because traditionally we are the leader. Traditionally we do lead our family. And it's somehow, you know, that might be socially why there are some problems today, because over the years and through the trauma that we've experienced as women, we've kind of let some of that, you know, role diminish itself. So what I mean by that is to have no shame, to take that role, to take that honor, and to do that. You know, you do lead your home, you do set the tone, you do lead people. There's no shame in that. That those the women lead, and that's what I'm all about, and that's what I try to help, particularly young women who might be struggling with those kind of thoughts. That's all.
Thank you. Does anyone else here have a question in person? Anybody from the board? Anyone? All right, thank you so much. Wait, I'm sorry, Vince, go ahead. Okay, that's a great question. So the question from Vince Romero, who happens to be our head veteran here at the American Indian Center, is asking, who are you currently mentoring, or who would you like to mentor? I'll let Arlene go first, just popcorn it out.
Well, I'm currently mentoring a Navy veteran, she served 12 years. So she's not a veteran yet. She's still active duty. But I'm currently mentoring her. She is a member of Standing Rock Reservation. And really, I'm just a sounding board for her. She calls me and we talk about her military career. And we talk about how racism and sexism is a huge problem still in the military. But that's who I mentor right now. I also am in a military sorority, so we have several women that we keep in touch with this when they go overseas, sending them care boxes, just letting them know that we're thinking about them anytime that we can keep in touch. I think that's important as well, because those are the women, of course, they're going to be coming back into our communities, and we don't want them to feel isolated just because they're out of the country.
Thank you, Arlene. Terry or Lynn, do you have anyone that you all are currently mentoring or would like to mentor in your role?
You want me, Lynn, you want to go first?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go ahead. You know, I would say for me, I mentor at I mentor at every opportunity and every day. I often feel like a lot of women, especially younger women, really look up to me, and they look up to me for a lot of different reasons. Oftentimes it just starts with a fashion compliment, or they'll ask my advice. But what's really near and dear to me, and is because I've seen our women in court. I've seen, and not only at the tribal level, but on the circuit court level. I've had women come to me and ask for help. And so when it comes to issues of domestic violence, my own sister was almost killed. And so when I take every opportunity I can to remind women that they're strong. And I would say I do it daily, and I do it at every opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Terry?
Well, I work at do a little work at Big Shoulders. I counsel people on being a high school dropout myself and going into the military. I preach the value of an education. I push it hard. So I speak at a lot of, I would say prior to the pandemic, I speak a lot at Big Shoulders events to push people to get GEDs and back in school. My sister passed away. I mentored both my nephews, one who's been in the Navy 9 years and is now in officer candidate school, who was a high school dropout, who I practically needed a cattle prod for him because he was the problem child. And then my other nephew just went in the Navy, and he is currently serving at Signor Air Base in Sicily. I push my nephews hard. I push the people that meet at Big Shoulders pretty hard to understand the value of an education. Education is the only way to get you out of the trench. And I preach it. I understand it. And that's really about it. I could probably go on forever about stuff like that, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you all. I guess we had a couple of questions come in, but they were answered or were not appropriate to ask. All of the candidates' information will be shared publicly online. We'll share their bios. You'll be able to see the information that they submitted on their board application so that you can read more about their background and know who you are actually voting for. So I thank you all for joining us in person. We appreciate your willingness to serve on this board for this community center. And thank you all for joining us. You can stay on the meeting. If you would like, we'll promote you back to attendees. But thank you all. We're gonna move forward to the actual annual meeting presentation, and I'll pass it over to Melody for that.
All right. Just to be clear, when we share it online, we were going to mention this in a few minutes, but our website is down, and not because it's faulty. We're actually building a new website. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But for right now, I want to go ahead and introduce our Director of Arts and Culture, Dave Spencer. Many of you know Dave, and I'll let Dave go ahead and go ahead and show his slides. Give me 1 second.
I'm trying to call. Oops.
Good afternoon. Hey, Alito. My name is Dave Spencer. I'm Mississippi Band Chaptai and Dene. I've been born and raised in Chicago, and it's always an honor to be part of the community and part of the American Indian Center. I'm the director of art and culture, and basically how I see the programming is sharing a little bit about our community, tribal and intertribal cultures. Also, we set up a gallery here on site, a small modest gallery, but the intention there is to provide a voice, to give a platform to voices in our community, to share perspective, issues. Currently, we have an exhibit that I'll talk about in a minute, but the public programs is just to, as our mission states, to share our culture with the larger community in Chicago. And I've always argued that we don't have a lot of public art out there. If you put us up against any community in the city of Chicago, we're always the minimum, if not one or two. So what we do here at the Indian Center is provide that space, give a voice, a platform. And I could honestly say that the space that we have here is 100% for Native voice. And it's probably the only institution outside of the Native community that has this. You talk about art spaces like the Field Museum, the Art Institute, the larger institutions. Yeah, they might have a Native exhibit, but when you consider the authorship, the percentage goes way down. So I'm really honored and proud that we can offer 100% voice to our community and to tell our stories and to recognize community folks, members and families. So that's what, in a nutshell, that's the mission behind the public art programs here at the Indian Center. So I'm gonna go ahead, this is kind of out of order, but I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about what we do here chronologically in 2020. One of our first events was this poetry event. It was in partnership with the Mitchell Indian Museum in Evanston. And we had a 3-day workshop that was facilitated by Vince Romero. He does a fantastic job and just really, really respectful of people's voices. And he offered a 3-day workshop of poetry writing. And to culminate the series, we had a partnership with the Mitchell and we had a live presentation. And let's see. So if you've ever been to the Mitchell, right at the entrance is a library. And we didn't know who we were expecting as an audience, but we packed this library. And it was about 53 people. And we presented about 5 different poets that night. Yes, was one of them, Mark Farag, Carlos Campion. They all presented, and it was just a real nice evening. Packed. Simultaneously to that, we had a workshop here at the Indian Center. So we had 2 programs that were simultaneous that evening. This is late January. Go to the next one. Also at the time, we had Leonard Peltier, which is original artwork at the gallery. So to end that series, that particular exhibit, we had a film screening of Incident at Oglala. And so that was the kind of the farewell to the Leonard Peltier exhibit that we had. Next one. Okay, where am I speaking?
It's right there.
So after Leonard Peltier exhibit, we had the urban sovereignty at the center, which is a a 4-part series that is all about the American Indian Center. So it's a retrospective for the American Indian Center. And I was very honored to work with 3 community people in this project. This is a part 2 of a 4-part series. Norma Robertson, Samantha Selby, and Bill Buckles all co-curated the current retrospective exhibit that still stands. Right now it's closed because of COVID, but we opened this exhibit in February, and about 3 weeks later was the shutdown. So when we do reopen, we're gonna just continue this particular exhibit for probably 3 months and then have a new exhibit following that. So the exhibit calendar is in development, so we're gonna have hopefully 1 new exhibit by the time this year ends, 2021. So currently the retrospective and then a new exhibit. Next one. So this was our opening reception. And we had about, I think, between 65 and 70 people that evening. So it was really nice turnout. And so you can see what we're doing in the gallery a little bit. Predominantly a photograph exhibit, along with some beaded crowns and some missing in Chicago sashes. So we were in partnership with the National Museum of Mexican Art, and we put together something called the Big Read, which was funded by the National Endowment for the Arts. And what they did was they used Louise Erdrich's The Roundhouse as infrastructure to the Big Read, which had different programs throughout the city with different institutions. So what we provided was a book discussion with Michelle Brownlee Ojibwe. So we did that here. It was the last public program that we had before the shutdown. So along with this, we also presented. Is that okay? Okay. 2 days before this book discussion, we had a dance and drum and dance presentation at the museum in Pilsen. The day we performed, the museum actually shut down to the public, and they put that out there. So we had a real small audience that evening, but we had a real nice representation by community drum and dancers. But the audience size, I think we had about 15 people. We were expecting between 75 and 100, but the shutdown happened, and we did the best we could. So during the retrospective exhibit, what we did was we accommodated one of our community members, Jade Roy. She wanted to do a pop-up exhibit, so we did it over 1 weekend. So this is how her pop-up exhibit looked. So this is a great thing that happened because we were able to do this and help out one of our community members. And this was for one of our senior projects at Columbia College. So we were able to do this over 2 days. So when the staff we kind of had a capacity building with Zoom. We tried to figure out how Zoom works, and it's really user-friendly now in retrospect. But it was really interesting to learn Zoom. We had to learn it because we had to go online and put these programs together. So one of the programs I came up with was a song share, and we got some singers in the community to share songs, and a couple of community members shared acoustic guitar with singing, and so it was nice. I think we lasted about an hour and a half, so that was nice. Actually, Vince Romero is a big, he's heading this event called Night of Poetry. Again, we were doing poetry workshops on site. We had that event at Mitchell, and then we went online, and Vince developed Night of Poetry. And I just want to acknowledge Vince. Vince, thank you for all your assistance and heading this program. So this is a monthly program on a Wednesday evening, and it's actually growing. So there is a man named Lauren Farrell He's actually based in Green Bay, and he has a production company called NBM Entertainment. What does NBM stand for? Newborn Men. And he's actually with Vince. They're actually making this night of poetry. It's going through Indian country. So we're having different poets from different parts of the country. For the last two meetings, we had over 2,000 viewers. Yeah, yeah. So this is really something that's going to grow, and we're going to try and get some sponsorships. You know, anything's possible right now. But I'm really thankful for Vince and his vision. So thank you again, Vince. So we have a program called Audio Overdose and another similar program called Raging Film. So what we do with this is, it all started because it was about getting community folks together at the Indian Center for an evening, listening to music, having some snacks, and just having a conversation. And it's been really nice. And this started as a monthly program as well. But since the stay-at-home order, we went online. We made it virtual now, so it's actually a bi-weekly program. So we have Audio Overdose on a Thursday evening, followed next Thursday with Raging Film. So it kind of rotates like that. So both Audio Overdose and Raging Film, they're bi-weekly programs, and it lasts between 2 and 3 hours. That might seem like a long time, but if you're joining us on that evening, you'll see how fast time goes, and the conversations happen. It's really nice, and you get to know people we see maybe at a powwow or at another community event. But with these programs, you get to know a little bit more about these folks, and it's really nice and funny. We have a lot of laughs, and at the comfort of our own home. But when we get back to coming back together, that was one of the reasons I started these programs, was to get community into the same room, nice ambiance, sharing food. So it's all about gathering. So, but you know, we're doing it virtually now, and it seems to be working, so we're gonna keep going. Audio Overdose, actually, we're into the last meeting was our 53rd session, 53 sessions coming together. Raging Film, we started last June, and so we're up to 21 sessions with that. So it's been really nice and entertaining and fun. So next one. Okay. So that's just a kind of a glance at the public art programs. I did want to talk a little bit about partnerships. ASC is being represented at the Field Museum. They're doing a complete overhaul of the Native American Hall, and they're having one part of it, Chicago, a Chicago-based exhibit in a circular format. So Indian Center has a seat at the table, so we're doing what we can. They're actually basing that Chicago portion of the Native American Hall. They're actually using our first AIC retrospective that we did 2 years ago. They're using that as kind of the infrastructure to that exhibit. So that was really cool for them to acknowledge that. We're also in partnership again with the National Museum of Mexican Art. They're developing an exhibit about indigenous people, and so they invited us to be part of that. So that's ongoing. We're also developing a pop-up exhibit with Design Museum of Chicago. That's in the pre-planning stage right now. The Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events expressed interest in partnering with us again for the World Music Festival. Really looking forward to that. So that's basically about all I have. If anyone has any questions, I can take that now. We also developed this virtual exhibit, and it's a exhibit that happened with the Indian Center 15 years ago. So we have those images and that space. So I wanted to share that as a virtual exhibit. So that's been developed. It's just a matter of getting the website together, which will be discussed later. Other than that, everyone's welcome. I invite people to come talk to me about exhibit development. If they have an idea, I'd like to take it to fruition, make it happen. So use the space, use the gallery, use the resources that we've developed over the years. And, you know, I invite you to join us for Audio Overdose. It's a lot of fun on a Thursday evening. If you're getting tired of reruns, tune into that. So anyone have any questions other than that? No?
Any questions?
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Dave. So I am going to go ahead and go over the education. Steps. Yep, got it. So we're going to talk a little bit just about some programs that we've had in the education department, as well as some stuff that we've been working on here at the AIC. We've had the Little One Storytime, which was designed for families to utilize children's literature to develop emotional intelligence and creativity within our youngest community, for our youngest community members. As we transition to online programming due to the pandemic, the AIC staff and community shared some of our favorite children's books. To assist with the stories, we developed some at-home activities for families to engage with. In addition, we uploaded the recordings of the Little One Storytime to preserve it for future reference so families can enjoy it at their leisure. One of the highlights of that program is that we had staff, community members, as well as some of our board members go ahead and read those stories out. And then we were acknowledged by Brenda Child, the author of Bow Wow Powwow, on our Facebook page. You know, Brenda is a renowned scholar on American Indian history and Indigenous education. The city program, it's the Chicago Intertribal Youth Program, formerly known as Positive Class. City is an innovative approach to rebrand what it means to be an urban Native by creating a space for Native youth who reside within the Chicagoland area in hopes of assisting our youth in becoming the leaders of tomorrow. City will facilitate the empowerment of youth by developing pathways for healthy and sustainable lifestyles. And due to the pandemic, the program and this year's summer program as well was shifted to a hybrid structure consisting of weekly take-home activities and in-person meetings at the First Nations Garden once a week. Originally, they had 20 youth members sign up for the program between the months of January and March. That was prior to the stay-at-home order. And then once they had the stay-at-home order, those numbers did decrease. So we had a consistent 9 youth show up to the in-person meetings with age ranges of 4 to 13. They had 12 youth who attended the program in total. And then they ended the summer program with the canoeing and kayaking at the Des Plaines River, starting at the Schiller Woods boat launch. Currently, they have the Native Script. It's a Zoom book club. Native Script is a book club designed to encourage equity within adult literature. Through the promotion of Native authored books, we aim to showcase the significance of literary expression and the promotion of socio-political, creative, and intellectual efforts of, I'm on a watch here. Of Native peoples today. Most importantly, this online book club promotes building community conversations that challenge its readers to critically reflect on the diversity and commonalities of Native experiences within the literature, history, and politics through the power of storytelling. The monthly book club participation is capped at 15. It's also done at a first come, first served basis. The events to date, we've done the They're There by Tommy Orange, which was a collaboration with Northwestern University. They've done Future Home of the Living God, The Roundhouse by Lewis Erdrich, Sacred Smoke, and Author Talk by Teddy Van Alst. In 2021, Native Script actually has become a collaborative between the Chicago Public Schools American Indian Education Program as well as the AIC. And they began with their first book called The Tower of the Raven. It's an Alaska Native memoir by Ernestine Hayes, and they had about 11 participants. The upcoming book is going to be Heartberries by Teresa Marie Milhold, and the sign up is open. And then I want to talk about the 4,000 North project. I'm not sure how many people of, within our community really know about this program. It was formerly known as the Northwest Portage Walking Museum. So 4,000 North has now it's been renamed. It's a multifaceted outdoor learning experience on Chicago's northwest side. Chicago has always been a major center for Native peoples due to our waterways serving as a transportation system. 4,000 North was founded in 2017 to celebrate the ecological and cultural history of Chicago. The goal of 4,000 North is to promote environmental literacy, visibility of Indigenous peoples, past and present, and develop an appreciation of the diverse neighborhood's history. Following the Irving Park Road between Chicago and Des Plaines River, the 4,000 North Trail stretches 9 miles through 7 diverse neighborhoods. The project was envisioned as an outdoor exhibition and is anchored by significant earthworks near each river, with interpretive works of public art connecting the 2 rivers. Fawn Pashal happens to be our lead on that project. And some highlights to that project. She did a GoFundMe that was launched on Martin Luther King's birthday. So the GoFundMe launched on Martin Luther King's birthday, which is also known as the National Day of Service. And then as of last night, we hit $10,000. Our goal is $75,000 for that particular project. We're in partnership with CPAG. The social media sites of Twitter and Instagram were launched. The project goal is to have an activity field guide for download on the 4,000 North project by the summer, as well as to have an event for the Nestwin sculptor at the Dunning-Reed Conservation Area. And lastly, in June, we hope to break ground on the Coil Mound. It's still kind of up in the air. Fawn's been actively working on this. This is kind of her full-time project right now. This has been a long time coming. There's been some Army Corps of Engineer issues. There's been some fundraising issues, just, because we're looking for more money to help build this stuff up. So we want to thank Fawn for her help on this project. Let's see. I'm going to go into, there we go. So so Fawn is in here. She is online. She's correcting us as we speak. And then Frankie's obviously running our Zoom meeting today. So I'm going to go over Frankie's stuff here. We want to go over the census work that we did this year because it's really, really important and it's super vital, especially to who we are as a community and we are as a people. So over several months, we advocated for the 2020 census and we teamed up with the National Urban Indian Family Coalition in their efforts to ensure all Native people get counted. They provided a lot of content with graphics, videos, resources, and we also created content ourselves here at AIC. We did handouts, flyers, Instagram, Facebook stories. We shared that material from the NUIFC to continue our efforts, including sending out newsletters with census information. We collaborated with American Indian Health Services of Chicago. And at the end of September, we were there for their counting fair, as well as continue to push the material out on our Friday food distributions. We had people from the Census Bureau come to our food distribution events so that they could help fill out the census while they waited in line. We also took part in a Twitter storm with Native Voices Network, which this helped push out the census date back. They helped us put that date back out to October 31st. Next. There we go. So Get Out the Vote was another really big campaign that we also did with NUIFC. When the 2020 census slowed down, we fully jumped right into the 2020 elections. We teamed up again with the NUIFC, receiving sources from When We All Vote. So we pushed some of their social media graphics and their resources. On National Voter Registration Day, we held an event. We had a table outside of the AIC with voter registration, how to register, how to find polling locations, how to request an absentee ballot, etc. We even helped people register and overall registered about 20 people and around 80 people showed up to the event in total. We decided that it was a great opportunity to push the 2020 election with the Indigenous Peoples Day, since a lot of other national organizations are also planning to push. And a voter-specific email will go out on Monday. Went out that Monday, very similar to the census email that was done as well. This includes most of the information we provide on the National Voter Registration Day. We've collaborated with other Native organizations for the trunk or treat event in the fall. And we were able to give out some candy, masks, hand sanitizers, as well as hundreds of get out the vote flyers, buttons, and flag. Let's see. Yes, let's see. There she goes. We're going to talk about the powwow. So we moved our, so first I wanted to say thank you to everyone who participated on the powwow committee and that was around and available to participate in our annual powwow this year. We understand that it was a virtual platform. With the help of the Vassar Group, we were able to complete an hour-length film where we interviewed 13 different community members about their relationship to the Chicago powwow. We were trying to use this film to highlight and celebrate the Chicago Native community. We interviewed community members as they told stories of their favorite powwow memories. We interviewed our royalty, we filmed dancers and drummers and edited all together into an hour-length film. After the film premiered on Friday night, on Saturday and Sunday, our virtual competition began. The virtual powwow was held at the Chicago annual powwow page. We had 26 different categories and gave away over $10,000 in prize money throughout the weekend. And then Vince and I got to be cool people and do grand entry and retreat right here in our very own gym. We got to be little celebrities. So in Indigenous Peoples Day, we just want to go over about the fall of 2019. IPD, the campaign officially launched in collaboration with the Cheyenne Nation Youth Council. The ordinance was written by the education coordinator, Fawn Paschal, where she also took the lead in writing the 16-page toolkit to accompany it. Fawn and Frankie plan to execute the teach-in for IPD early in the winter of 2000, where over 50 people attended. Next, I want to talk about our community kitchen. In the fall, the American Indian Center got to collaborate with a place called Community Kitchen in Zonerman. These are two places with some Michelin star chefs. They have some food trucks, and what they've been able to do is they've provided prepackaged meals to go on Tuesday afternoons. So if you need 4 meals to sustain you, if you need 15 meals to sustain you for your family, that's what we're here for. We could do that on Tuesdays. Since the fall, we've been distributing them and we give about anywhere between 100 to 150 meals a week. And every week we just got blessed with Panera as well. So now we partner with Panera and we receive bread donations every week. And we go ahead and distribute that on Tuesdays as well with our food distribution as well. Next. And then I wanted to talk about our holiday event. So just like previous years, we put it together, kind of last minute during this pandemic, and with the help of our amazing community, some beautiful veterans groups, a lot of our different organizations, the holiday season, we had a toy gift drive to distribute Native families in Chicago. We collected toys and donations for kids aged anywhere from newborns to 18 years old and their families. Families were able to take photos with Cente in a socially distanced way. And we had raffles with bikes and tablets. We gave over 120 food baskets away. We served over 100 families and gave toys to over 150 kids. Between toys and monetary donations, we gave over $25,000 away to our community. And in case anybody's here in person, you can't see it online, this beautiful little corner of our gym is actually the remainder of our Christmas event. And we'll be putting the remainder of those beautiful items that were donated to us for our families and their Easter baskets next week. So if you haven't signed up for your Easter basket, please do so. I just wanted to go over a couple things that I wanted to share. Obviously, there's been some, issues with the website. There are no issues with our website. Our website is currently being updated. It's going to be very user-friendly. We're going to be able to put in a member portal so members can have access to not just their information, but any private member information. If you want bylaws, if you want, you personally want to ask for something of us from the Indian Center, you'll be able to do that through your member portal. I don't know if you guys seen the part in our dust around here. There's a lot of paint and stuff going on. Dave has an amazing grant. you know, and we've been talking about opening up the center and really doing some really cool art stuff. So last weekend we had some youth and Vince Romero teaching kids some general construction, and we're redoing kind of our hallways, and we're redoing the lobby space so that we can turn that into a public art space at some point. Part of where we're going with our website is we're going to start installing some local art pieces, not just art pieces, but if you're a beader, send us your beadwork. If you're an artist of any kind, you have a tape, you have a photo of a dress, a shawl, skirt, regalia. When you start sending those things, and we'll let you know when it's coming, probably in the next few months, you can display your stuff here, and they can scan it or ask us about it, and you can sell your items through AIC, and there'll be a Shopify where they can link to your own private pages if need be, so that we can help our local artists in any way that we can. That's a program that we're just starting to look at. We're getting the stuff down for our website. Another program that we're going to be starting is our blog. We'll be starting that hopefully within the next 3 months or so. Frankie, right? We were talking about that when it went up. And we started reaching out to our list of NCAI. We're going to be putting together tribal nations newsletters. So if you're from the Navajo Nation and you want to see what's going on down there, you can go onto our website, click onto newsletters, look up your tribe, and pull up your tribe's newsletter. So it's a program that we haven't started yet. We started the contacts, and we're working that together into our website. What else do we have going on? I forgot. I wrote it down and I forgot. Another thing we really wanted to talk about is we got a lot of calls, and I've had some people reach out to me, and so I've been working with a couple of different vendors and partners and sponsors about our seniors and about our elder community. And one of the big things that we get asked a lot is, when are the doors going to open, and how can they open safely? And, you know, will there be a place for us? There is absolutely a place. And as a matter of fact, I'm happy to announce it's actually going to be the first thing we open when we open up to the public. We're actually going to be working on our senior center. We're going to work on what that really looks like. So I wanted to put out, and we were going to talk about this in a few minutes, but we'll talk about it now. We're looking at the week of April 16th, 17th, and 18th. We want to start our first town hall. We understand that a lot of people feel that they haven't been heard, and the AIC wants to give them their voice back. We want to be able to do that in town halls. We want to, hopefully with these town halls, we can hear what people have to say, and we can start putting together a plan to put our community back together. I wanted to address not just the reports, but as I've gone over the reports, I'd like to talk about some things that have affected our community. As the pandemic has come over the world, we as Native people have continued to be resilient. My speech was supposed to be, and my report was supposed to be about building resiliency in community. And there's been a lot of things recently that I think that we as an organization need to address, because it's time, and enough is enough. If there's anything this pandemic has shown us as people, is that we can survive anything. Our Creator has always been there for us in many ways, and has put things in front of us that we may not always understand, but the one thing that's always been a constant is the resilience of Native people. I'm gonna get a little emotional, so apologize in advance. I will tell you all a quote that my Auntie Jean used to say, and I don't know if any of you remember her, but her name was Jean Latrell. She was a beautiful artist. She was a traditional dancer. She always used to tell me, and I tell this to my staff, I tell this to everyone I meet, I tell this to my kids every day, the Creator has never put me on a path that hasn't been meant for me, ever. Whether it's good or bad, there's been a lesson in every single thing and every single path that I've ever been on. Even when I question the things that I've endured, and we all have at some point, there's always been a lesson. This year, many things have been put in front of us, and in front of me, just as they have for our community. My mom passed this past year in September. Many of you knew her. Her name was Maxine Spataro. She actually used to be the interim executive director. She worked in social services and she helped with the senior center. And she fed many families and she clothed many children. And she was a kind, beautiful woman. And I'd like to believe that I am her legacy because she's taught me well. This work is a selfless, thankless job. And we will take the abuse all day, every day, because it's who we are as Native people. But today, enough is enough. And I'm going to go off script, and I talked about this with some of my board members last night. Some of our people in our community have received countless emails, and they've received letters. It brings me and it makes me a little emotional, not because I'm hurt by them, because I know they're not true, but because of the hurt and pain that it has caused our community. As a community, the lateral violence needs to stop. We cannot continue to tear each other down. We talk about why the AIC is failing, why everything is happening, why? I grew up in this Indian Center, not in this building, but at 1630. I was a part of every damn program since I was a little kid. Cecilia Stumbling Bear was right there with me, Arthur Ben, his daughter Renata, B. Chevalier. I can go on. I gave the graduation speech at high school. I became a veteran looking up to Ron Kelty and Sam Kiana. I'm a 5th generation Native vet. We've been in every damn war since World War I, and we are resilient. But enough is enough. The violence that is happening, the lies, the deceit that is happening in our community has to stop. It's affecting our elders. It's affecting our youth. When we talk about why our youth programs do not grow, the reality is this. I sit on the Education Council with CPS for our Native students. Parents don't want their children involved because the adults can't get along, and their children are subject to violence. They're subject to trauma. They live in intergenerational homes and it affects their grandparents. So then their grandparents don't want to come because their grandkids don't feel welcome. We have to stop this. So I'm committing AIC to doing town halls, to putting together youth advisory councils, to sit here and listen. But what I am going to tell you is this: if we continue down this road, not one person, not one white man, not one colonized thought is going to tear down the American Indian Center. It's going to be ourselves. Because our funding goes away when our funders see the hate and the deceit and the nastiness in our community. Our funders look at us and they say, why would we fund people that can't even take care of themselves? They're fighting amongst themselves. We don't have to worry about outside people destroying us if we're destroying ourselves. Let me be very clear in the rumors. This building is not up for sale. It was never up for sale. It's not thought of to be up for sale. Nothing is for sale. We're making improvements so that we can provide these programs for you. We want you in the building. We want you to be in our program. And I understand that 100 people before me may have sold you a story, but I brought you 3 beautiful people here today, and they're sitting right over there at that table. And I know you guys might have been wondering, who the heck are these people? We have Cheer Ivory. She's a forensic accountant, and she's been helping us get all of our books back, setting up our accounts, making sure our stuff is classified properly. So when these reports and you ask where your money is, you're gonna darn well know where your money is and how it's being spent. We have Brandy Liberty, who does strategic planning, because guess what? Our books aren't right, our numbers aren't right, and our strategic plan is horrible. So our funding value is a mess, to be it nicely. So we've hired these people and they've come and they've offered their help to us because as one of the oldest urban Indian centers in this country, they want to watch us succeed. Dr. Joe Hobart, he's a consultant with NUIFC and he's the president and CEO. I'm going to get it wrong, I know, because I'm all nervous up here because I'm a little emotional. He's the American Indian of OIC, president and CEO of American Indian OIC. Thank you. Sorry, it was a mouthful. These people have come here willingly to help us succeed, to say, okay, what happened in the past, it does not negate your feelings, it does not negate your emotions, I apologize, not because I may have done it, but I'm apologizing because it was done to you, because it caused you harm as a community. It caused you harm as people. And I am a human, and so I will take that on. And if you need me to be the person that you have to yell at so that your voice is heard, I will take that on. I will take that on for every single person in this community equally. But please remember that when we're beating people up in our community, we have children and our children are watching. We can't continue to talk about traditions and values when our children are watching their parents be beat up, when the grandkids are watching their grandmas be yelled at. We can't do this anymore. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I'd like to introduce you now to Ms. Cheer Ivory so that she can talk about AIC's financial standing, where we were, where we are, and where we're going. Cheer.
First and foremost, hello, good afternoon. I have to let you know it is an absolute pleasure to have been able to work with the American Indian Center and be able to help and assist in the transition. I need to speak louder. Okay, I'm also a soft speaker, and it doesn't help that I have a mask on, but it helps all of us stay safe. So again, my name is Chair Ivory. I represent Ivory Financial Services, and that's a financial and business consulting firm. Our primary objective at Ivory Financial Services is to ensure that all stakeholders within an organization are aware of the finances. It's too often that you walk into an organization and people are given transcripts and people are given report outs and they're given financial statements and they have no idea what any of them mean. So the first and primary objective that I have when I come in and engage is to ensure that you know what these statements mean. So financial and no space. Oh. Okay. Presentation overview. We'll discuss a preliminary review of what some financial terms are, what's significant to nonprofit reporting. We'll also review some of the financial reports after we discussed exactly some of those terms within those reports. We'll review some of the findings. I've been working with AIC for probably the past couple months very intensely when we were able to get more access to the systems and records. And we'll be able to share some of those findings with you. And then we'll also talk about some of the proposed changes or the changes that are in place at this point in time. And of course, we have a question slide because the idea is that you can communicate and advise and ask any questions that you have. Overview of financial statements. I love this little picture. It says, we're in good shape. Nobody understands our financial statement. No questions asked, no problem. But there's a problem when you don't know, you don't ask the questions because you don't know what you've looked at. So I love animations, you all. I want to review a couple key phrases within the review of a financial statement. The representation, what a financial statement is a representation of the financial health and position of an organization. It tells you key things like how much cash you have coming in, how much you have going out, called expenditures. It tells you the difference between the two. In this case, we're not worried about making a lot of money, but ensuring that you have funds to be able to continue to grow your your organization's mission. Accrual versus cash. Each of these financial statements are based on an accrual reporting. And what that means is that if we have a grant that's been awarded to you, but you've not yet received the cash, you may be able to begin to plan for that grant's purpose. So if that grant's purpose is to create a kitchen for your organization, you can begin to plan and you can place it on the books. Whereas a cash financial statement says you cannot record that grant until you actually receive the cash. Again, stop me at any point. I get excited about accounting. So if I'm a little too excited, moving a little too fast, please let me know. Fund accounting. That is what nonprofits have. What happens is you have different key causes that you have. You have a kitchen you want to build. You have an arts program that's in your hallway. You may have a beautification project. You're outside and you're painting your building. Each of these projects may have a specific budget, meaning if someone, a grantor awards you a certain amount of money, they say you can only use this money for that purpose. You can only use this money to build your gym program. You can only use this money to paint the outside of your building. You can only use this money to create a kitchen in your facility. That's what fund accounting is. Fiduciary responsibility and meeting funding requirements. We're going to talk about that at length a little bit. And what that means is that all of your board members have the responsibility to ensure that once you receive the money, it's spent accordingly. In many cases, some of your funding is called restricted, or in this case, New Standard says funding with restrictions. And what that says is, if you do not spend this money on this purpose, if you don't spend this money on this type of expense, you cannot pay your staff with this money. If I find out that you do, if I find out that you didn't spend it in a certain amount of time, guess what? We want that money back, but it's spent. So now it has to come out of your unrestricted funding, which was intended to pay your staff. So let me know. This is like, now you know everything about nonprofit accounting. I promise. These are all the key concepts. Let's talk about some of the findings. Again, any questions, do not hesitate. Say, hey, chair, stop. I need to understand. Reclassify. So there are a couple things. There's what happens here inside this building, and there's what happens when you all take all of those financial statements and you have to present them to a donor. You have to present them to the government. There are financial reporting standards. These standards are requiring a different reporting structure for AIC. Previously, it was called restricted funding and unrestricted funding. It's now called funding with restrictions. It's very simple, but it's something that has to be reported differently in order to be in compliance with accounting standards or accounting boards. Misclassification of transactions. I have went into your books and found transactions that should have been a liability, and it was raised as an asset, or meaning it brought value to your books. And I've seen it where I've seen a negative asset. How do you carry a negative asset? So that's part of misclassification. Inconsistent reporting. It's a matter of not having policies and standards in place, not having accounting treatments. And if you have an accounting, someone who's aware of some of the accounting standards, then they will consistently apply those accounting standards so that when someone has a question, they can answer it. It doesn't change. We've been on a journey. I've been on a journey with AIC. Love every minute of it, but it's been a journey to reconcile the different statements, the reports, and what they may say differently. And I've been given consent to be fully transparent. So not being hard, I'm just being transparent. Non-compliance with accounting standards. We've kind of talked about that a little bit. Disclosure of nature, amount, and timing. I'm going to talk about that at length. And what that means is that when you have funding, we need to know what you intend to do with it. We need to know when you intend to spend it. We need to know how much it is. What is it attributed to? Who gave you that money? Why did they give you that money? What type of organization gave you that money? Was it a government? Was it an individual? Was it private? Was it a foundation? These are classifications that must be aligned with the funding that you record on your books. Again, always stop me. Absence of completeness. In any audit, your records have to be complete. I need to be able to go in, pull a transaction, and see the related document. Melanie will tell you, I sat in the office yesterday and she said, Cheer, we're going to receive this grant. I said, show me a award letter. I can't book it until you show me proof that that's actually what you're going to receive, that it's really in your pipeline. Because I don't want to inflate your numbers. I want it to be that when you put in an application for funding and they decide that they're going to audit you, they're going to say, show me that you really made that money. Show me you really brought in that money. Show me that you really spent it where you said you spent it. I want to make sure that that's what they can validate. Because if they cannot, then you may not receive that funding. The inadequate documentation, we just talked about that, making sure that there's support for every transaction that's recorded in your books. Inadequate transparency. So I can't see it, if it's not transparent, I can't see it. If I can't see it, I can't validate it. So these are some of the findings as of the past 3 months that has allowed me to really get in and see what's going on. And they're not new findings. In some cases, I guess they're being articulated differently, and your board now has a desire to ensure that it's shared with the greater community. Y'all ready? This is the fun part, right? Statement of financial position. Okay. Assets, remember, those are the good things. Those are the things that carry value. That's saying that you're in this building is worth $1 million. Hey, that's good, that's great. But you got $1 million on the book, positive, we're up here. But you need to maintain this building. So you may have, and this is a figure, it's not a real figure, but you may have spent, actually we'll use a real figure. You may have spent a couple $1,000s painting a particular room or painting a hallway, or so we'll use it, that's reasonable. Guess what? So on the book, you have this asset balance there, and you have to record the cost against that asset. You also record some depreciation, but we're not going to get into that unless y'all ready to be accountants. So this is what the statement of financial position does. It tells you what all of your current assets are, and then it tells you what all your liabilities are. Who do you owe? And then it tells you the value remaining. So right now you see the equity, which is how much they say your organization is worth as an entity, is 1.6. I want to be fully transparent and share with you that of that 1.6, at least 1.1 is your building. So that means that you go back up to those assets, you're at 631 in terms of current assets. So that's your cash, that's your maybe pipeline funding. That's what you really have to spend, so to speak. And we're going to talk about how we break that down. So you don't really have that 631. So everyone good with the statement of financial position? I like to make accounting fun, so I hope you all are having fun as I am. So, statement of activity. Oh, this is just a lot. If I'm honest with you, we talked about changing standards. Changing standards. One thing that the accounting board wants us to do now is, in the nonprofit organization, define the nature and the natural order of an expense. What that says is, we want to know exactly what that was. It a utility expense, and then was it attributed to administrative? Did you align it with administrative funding? So how did you account for this expense? This statement of activity gives you a summary. I'm gonna try to walk over. Oh, maybe I can see it here. I wear glasses most days. All the days that I need them, I don't. So pipeline. Start at the top. We have revenue. What came in? Total restricted income. If you look, you'll see that for June 2018 to June 2019, there was total restricted income of 281. Maybe we can make this bigger. 281. Ooh, it got really big. We go to the next year, it was 397. You may want to ask, what was the big jump attributed to? This financial statement allows you to look and see exactly what that jump was attributed to. And I might even want to challenge someone. I can make it really, really big. I can point it out. But it shows where the value increased from one column to the next. Anybody want to take a quick guess? I'm not having fun yet. Okay, I'm going to show you. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. So if you look in the foundation grant column, so, for it, if you don't mind. I could probably reach it a little bit. It's okay, y'all. She's pointing. The 4111, you'll see that there was a significant increase in your foundation grant. So again, the idea here is to show you some of your financial statements because some of these are going to change as we clean up and reclass, but to make sure that when you receive a packet, you know what that packet means. So again, we looked at, oh, look at that, she got a mouse. So we look at the changes in the source of funding over time. You'll see these two columns that are outlined in blue. That first column is your inception to date. What are your actuals in this fiscal year? The next column is what is projected. And also you'll see at the very top there's a 58K. That one was manually entered. So 58K in my world means 58,000 to most people. That's what's in your pipeline. That's what Melody has showed me in a award letter and said, here, it's coming in. It's coming in. So I want you to book that in. Again, the purpose of this is to be able to show you how to read these statements, right? So if we look all the way at the bottom, so we have the section on income, and we go to the bottom, and we have a section on expenditures. Expenditures are expenses or costs. We take the income, we reduce it by the cost, and we get our net. What's left? What did we gain in this period? So I want you all to take a really, really good look. That fiscal year 2019, it's actually negative 144. But it's not saying that you were negative in the books because you may have carried over money from you did, not you may. You carried over money from the previous year, which means you spent money that was in the book before this particular period of time. So, right. So if we go to fiscal year 2020, you'll see negative 215. Guess what? We are making a comeback for fiscal year 21. And I'm going to be perfectly transparent and say, when you ask yourself, okay, why were we negative, or why did we spend more than we actually brought in those periods for these 2 consecutive years, but we didn't do it this year? Couple different reasons. Guess what? You didn't have as many costs. You didn't have as many programs. You didn't have, and truthfully, you didn't have as much funding in this period, in these periods either. But this is how you read this financial statement. So a couple graphics, I think. Okay, so one of the things that an auditor or someone like myself who goes in, a forensic accountant goes in and does, is we look and we see what your vulnerability is based on a funding type. How diversified, how many different sources of funding, how many different types of organizations do you have giving you funding? So how much are you receiving from foundations? How much are you receiving from corporations? How much are you receiving from individuals? On that previous chart, it showed you those different lines of revenue. This is what I did. I just pulled out one. I pulled out your government funding. The difference between what this little picture that popped up says is, hey, this is what your net, that bottom line became once I pulled out that one line. Negative 144, negative 215, negative 94. Obviously, if you already had a negatively performing year, you're dependent on every source of funding that comes in. So you're not concentrated in any one particular area, but the problem is you still need to bring, the concern rather, is that you need to focus on bringing in more funds or generating funding and continuing to reduce the cost. But I will say in the nonprofit world, the idea is that you fund the cost. So it's not, you can't spend until you get it, but it makes sure that you have funding to spend. Because we want you all to continue to be able to exercise your mission and your objectives within your community. So this is how we read this particular statement of activity. Okay, I'm gonna quiz you all at the end. Let's see. Let's talk about restricted versus unrestricted. Remember we talked about fund accounting? We talked about some funds you have to spend on a particular purpose. Meaning, if you spend it anywhere else, again, it's a liability, you need to pay that person back. What is important? One thing that we look at with this, so we said, I think you had about 600K in liquidable assets. Those were your assets, that's the cash, that's the accounts receivable. How much of that is restricted? I have a concern. I bet it says right now about 389 is restricted. You know what the concern is? That there is an intent amount of forensic accounting, of deep diving, because of the lack of support in terms of documentation to know exactly what buckets that restricted funding is in. So you all have some cash. So you may look at it and we have that 600, we have that 700 in cash and assets, but you can't spend an estimate. You can't spend about 389 of it until we find out what it's supposed to be spent for. So this is part of me sharing, this is what the next stage is for my work with AIC. How we have the funds, yes, you have the funds, but where is it supposed to go? And in some cases you may have spent it, now we need to map that cost with that funding. Now I wanna explain to you all the vulnerability that restricted funding poses, because, and this will come later in the presentation, but the vulnerability that it poses obviously is that you may have to pay it back. One of those is time restricted funding. So it has to be spent by a certain day. I'm gonna be honest, the pandemic afforded AIC and many other organizations the opportunity to extend those days out. So guess what? We got more time to figure out how we're supposed to spend that money. But again, some of that funding is vulnerable to return based on the fact that it is time-based as well. Not all of the 389, because remember, we're still mapping the restricted with what's been spent or what it attributes to, which grant is attributed to. I like animations, I like things growing. I mean, it would have helped if I made it a little bigger earlier, but, oh, look, it gets bigger too. Okay. Statement of cash flow. That's exactly what it sounds like. Where's your cash come from? So again, the objective of this presentation is to tell you, is to advise you of some of the work that we're doing with AIC, to make sure that you know the state of finances with AIC, but also that when you receive a financial packet, you can take that bad boy and you can handle it. Meaning you can ask all the right questions. You won't be in a room where it says everything is great because no one's asked any questions. You'll be the person raising your hand. So if you have any questions, just let me know. But again, this is just looking at the activities that take place within an organization. Where is your cash going to? Is it investing in programs? Are we just spending it in overhead? Where is the cash going? Budget performance. Oh, this was fun. So what this says is, every year we're gonna set a budget. Prior to me getting, because it's not my budget. Prior to me getting here, there was a budget set for the organization. Now we have had some extenuating circumstances. We did just, the world just lived through a pandemic. But if you look here, I'm sharing with you the budget deficits. Previously, for the fiscal year 21, it was advised that you all would have about 900K in revenue. That's not what has happened at this point in time. You brought in about 600K. That creates a disparity in funding. So if you budgeted for that money to come in, based on the fact that you all are in a deficit at the end of each fiscal year, then that means you're dependent on that money that you budgeted coming in. If it does not come in and you happen to spend it, guess what? You're negative again. Look at the expenditures that were budgeted. 880K. So you were supposed to clear 20K this year. So the bottom blue line says we're going to bring in 900K. The bottom purple line says we're going to spend 880K of that money. And the green line says this is what we're going to have on the books to carry over to next year. Because you have to have something to carry over to next year. If you're not bringing in more funds than you're spending. Just for a point of reference, at this point in time, you all are, and I mean, we still have the year to complete, so there's still hope. We got a lot of hope here. It's not in any way a lost cause. We'll talk about some of the ways that we're strategizing to make sure that we are firm in our plan in ensuring the stabilization of the financial stabilization of your organization. So again, we're at 600K in terms of funding, so it's a deficit of 33%. And if you look at net income, oh, well, that negative 26% is actually for spending. So we've spent 648 instead of the 48, instead of the 880. So we've spent 648 instead of the 880. But remember, spending is also down because you all aren't having as many programs, most likely attributed to the pandemic. Your pipelines, this is very last column, just to let you know, you have a pipeline. There is some money anticipated to come in. Remember I showed you your AR? This is what Melody has shown me she's received an award letter for, but the 108 is what we're working towards getting, the money we're trying to bring into AIC, but has not been awarded. Okay. Change management. I say all of it, this is the fun part, but I say everything's fun, right? So we talk about alignment of financial strategy with organizational objectives. What I can share with you, and honestly, I go through a little fight with this one right here because of this with Melody, is one of the key objectives that has been expressed to me is we want to bring back programs into our organization. We want to, I hear all the time, we want to make sure our seniors have a senior center. Melody, I need some money before you go spend it. I'm like, bring me some money first. I walked in yesterday and I seen the walls and I seen you paint. Melody, what are you doing? Honestly, she's amazingly cooperative. She advised, Chair, we received a grant for this and we need to spend it down. So when we talk about restricted funding, that activity was previously funded. She was able to identify that it was in the budget and that's why she spent it. She didn't want to make a call and tell me she was about to spend it because she knows how she is. Proper recording of financial transactions. Again, I want to be able to go into your financial statements. I want you to be able to go into your financial statements and have a high degree of confidence that they are accurate, that there's no specialized treatment. What I veer away from is any specialized treatment because they say that you want to ensure that someone else can pick up the baton after you. You want to ensure that it's transparent. You want to ensure that when your funders come and they say, we want to give you money, but we want to see how you're spending it, that they can't poke a hole in the presentation that you provide. Improve transparency and financial control. Let's do financial policy. Melody advised me today. That's the finance office. It has a lock and key. Okay, great. That's part of financial control. Sure, I don't cut checks. Great, she can sign them, but she does not cut them. Those are finance, it's called segregation of duties. That's part of the policy, that's part of the policy that you implement in order to ensure financial control, that somebody is always watching somebody. No one person should be king of the castle or manage their finances on their own. This is a community organization. It needs to be accountable to the community and its members. Preempt funding and record pipeline. Let's begin to observe what's coming. Let's not guess, not just have a deposit in the account. Let's plan it from an accounting perspective. So one of the plans that we're doing is incorporating projects into your financial reporting system. And what that does is it will take the funding, it'll book it, say this may come, and it'll allow you to report what's in the pipeline. And when you record that, you're attaching the documentation to it. So now you have a record and you have support. Very important here. Adequate budgeting. I pride myself on a budget, but that's one of my specialties is budget analysis, resource management. What that means is I don't just look at historical performance because guess what? No one knew a year ago we were going to have a pandemic. We have to look at what's real. We won't take, you may have spent on your powwow 1 year for dancers, maybe 70K, I'm throwing a number out there, but it was a number. You won't budget next year for that powwow for that same 70 or 60K. Instead, you'll prepare yourself and we'll work on looking at things more conservatively. How can we, maybe instead of spending that much in that, let's provide another resource as well. Let's see what all of our alternatives are. And that's the decision that you all make as a community. It's just my goal to make sure that there are some parameters in place so that that budget is a budget. It is a guideline that is reliable. And improve reporting structure. That goes back to your chart of accounts, aligning it with the expectations of the government, of financial reporting, making sure that AIC can be accountable for the funds that it receives, making sure the people whom are managing the finances are accountable to the organization and the government who may audit your records, or any other funder. It's not just government. It could be a foundation. It could be a community organization that you have a partnership with. It could be anything, or it could be any one organization, any type of organization auditing your records. We want to ensure that you have the appropriate reporting structure and records to give them all the information they need, and again, have reasonable confidence in knowing that it's correct. We're getting close to the end because I see some people going to sleep. All right, let's talk about, again, I'm gonna say the fun part, right? Because it's all fun. What are we doing here? What's Cheer doing? What's Ivory Financial Services doing in order to make sure that the solution provided is actually addressing the problem? We do this hybrid method with, it's called SWOT analysis, where we look at your strengths, your weaknesses, we look at opportunities, and we look at threats. There's a threat. One threat is we haven't identified all of the time-based restricted funding. That threat says that may come out the budget. We have to observe that. The records aren't where we need them to be right now. That may keep us from getting more funding. So observing any of the threats, the opportunity. Hey, let's look at these financial reporting. And do you see how much foundation-related funding was given? Guess what? There's an opportunity, maybe a greater opportunity in foundation-related funding than necessarily our federal funding. Maybe that's where our sweet spot is. So where are the opportunities? Not just that, opportunities for improvement. Let's see. We talked about strengths. Let me be perfectly honest. Generally, in like a nonprofit world, if someone says to me, "Chair, I want to spend this money," and you tell me that your bottom line is negative, I'll say no. Everybody needs to take a sit back. It's not okay. What are we gonna do next? However, the strength that I see is the spirit, the commitment that you all have to your community. That the fight that she's willing to take on with me and saying, I need to spend the money here. Chair, I need to make sure that this looks nice. Chair, I need to make sure that this resource is available for this particular group in my community. The spirit that I've seen thus far is one that will motivate any contractor to continue to work. Because believe you me, I put in some substantial hours, but I wouldn't do that for just anyone, for anyone who did not take pride in their work, in their community, or in the organization. One of my clauses in my agreement is that we have to be partners. I don't do anything by myself when it comes to my clients. We have to be partners because that's the best way I can get you the results that you need. I cannot give you results without understanding your needs. And I know for sure that a need is that you all want to make sure that this community center is a resource to your community. So weaknesses, I mean, we've addressed that. We've already talked about some of the financial exposure that you have. TDM, short, total design. That's taking a process and looking at it from a technical perspective and realizing the opportunities for improvement. These are just things, again, tools that I personally use and making sure that you all have a solution. And what I call, we didn't get the title, did we? Oh, hold on, let's see, it grows. Oh, it's hidden. It says the ARC Bucket Challenge. Bucket Challenge. So what that means is, when Melody's on the phone with me, we have 3 different buckets that we have to address. So after I look at all of those areas and try to identify some of the problems, I say, okay, which bucket do you need? Do we need to look at funding? Do we need to look at spending? Or do we need to look at your savings, your investments? Do we need to look at your strategy? I'm gonna be honest, AIC has to look at all 3. But that's okay. I think we have a Wednesday check-in. We're looking at the spending. Melody, what you spending? What do you want to spend? So we have a template where she puts in, this is what I want to spend. Hey, did you put some funding? Did you enter any funding line? Show me what you're bringing in. I just need you to generate some revenue right now. That's all. Generate some funding. That's the word we use here. I need some funding, more than I need spending right now. But we focus on all 3 of those buckets. What is the priority? What do you want to see? Again, full transparency. I'm going to share what you will share with me. So I'm looking at her because I'm like, okay, well, she didn't tell me to share this, but I'm going to share it with you. A major priority is working on you all's server. Do you really need a server? But she's emphasizing at this point in time that it's a priority amongst your board members in your organizations to ensure secure IT technological security for the organization. I get it. When you say it like that, you definitely get it. So again, we look at, this is what we call the bucket challenge. Every week, we look at what is your spending priority right now? What could it be in the future? And how can we generate some more funds? So this is how we come up with, this is how we've come up with the plan that we have for AIC. I would say this is the fun part, but I don't know. Questions? Y'all didn't expect this to get up here and have the ball that I had. I'm trying to make accounting fun, y'all. Come on, come on. I know we can't party in the COVID world, but I mean, something. I'm sorry, say that again. They will be once they have been cleaned. The last thing I want to do is give you conflicting financial information. When it's mine, I can give it to you. Okay.
So she stated once the reports are accurate and clean, correct, she will provide financial statements. The share company.
Just to clarify what that means, what it means they're not clean. Can you clarify a little bit so that they understand some of the difficulties that we have while we're working this hard to achieve that transparency? So right now, for instance, in that statement of activity, we bucketed out the restricted and unrestricted. It may be once we line up some of those costs with the restricted funding that available restricted budget will go down. Right now, a lot of those costs are placed onto unrestricted. So that'll change 2 different accounts and could be substantially. So we want to ensure that we've done our due diligence, we've verified each of those accounts, and we've pointed each expense and each revenue to the appropriate place to verify that the report we give you is correct. And it's literally a step-by-step process. I can tell you I was in here yesterday and there was one more count that I felt was muddy. And I was like, okay. So that's what I mean by clean. We want to make sure that they're good. I'll give you that tends to look a little funny for them. So if they're looking at some of that stuff and to clarify as they read statements, why I explain why it's important for you to be able to really justify every single number with a piece of paper. I'm gonna give you, the one example I was thinking of is I was going through the books and I noticed it was $9.9 thousand. It said loan payment because the system will sometimes assign it an account, but we go in and we fix it. I've had discussions with Melody. I'm rough. Melody, we didn't talk about any loans. What is this? Why are we making a loan payment right now? And in terms of why I need to clean, this is an example. It was actually a credit card debt that was not reported. So what that meant, I need to go in, create the debt, and then relieve it with a payment. So that's an example of, hey, you had a loan payment, but you didn't have a loan on the books. I needed to create the credit card liability or debt and then relieve it and move it out of the loan bucket that didn't really exist. So that's one example. In terms of, to be clear, please don't worry that was a very old debt. To be perfectly honest, it was a very old debt. In terms of I don't know how granular in terms of detail you want me to be. I try to maintain a neutral status. So
in terms of time frame that debt was incurred prior to my working with AIC, prior to probably prior to October. So again, I'm rough. My job is to come in and make the finances right, but I maintain a neutral status. So.
Well, thank you to your faculty. Please do this one more round.
Thank you all. Infinite gratitude. I've had a ball. I really do enjoy this most days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I know that we're running close. Does anybody need to take like a 5-minute break for anything? Some water? Does anybody want me to bring you guys have the kids bring you guys some additional water, a smoke break, a bathroom break, super quick? I know that we're running a little bit behind. It's about 20 minutes or so behind. So yeah, so we have about 50 minutes left. We apologize for being late. Sorry for our issues. We thank you so much for your patience and your stuff. So we're gonna pop off for a few minutes. We're just gonna take a very quick break and allow some people here to stretch their legs. backing up a little bit, we're gonna get started in the next minute. We have our show up next. Please come on in, take a seat. We're setting up the stuff for, okay, where do I need to stand?
You can just go sit down.
Huh?
You can just go sit down. I think right here will be
We
fine,
are coming.
because it's gonna come through.
Hey.
So she'll read the Bible first, but it'll come. The speakers right here.
It's on?
You're not gonna read the whole thing.
No. All right. Are you checking stuff? Can everybody hear me online? I know they can hear me over here. Somebody give a thumbs up or just say yes if you guys can hear. Perfect. All right. This is Dr. Joe Hobart. He is the president and CEO of the American OIC. Dr. Hobart is a descendant of the Hunkpapa Band of the Lakota Nation from the Standing Rock Indian Reservation. Actually, he's just got a really cool bio, and I'm just gonna let him do it because he does it way better than the rest of us. So instead of reading you guys a paragraph, it's quite all right. I'm introducing Dr. Joe Hobart.
And then in addition to that, I serve as a faculty member for the Falmouth Institute, which does training with tribal leadership, tribal councils, tribal administrators, as well as indigenous nonprofits all throughout Indian country. So I get to travel quite a bit. I did, in the before time. But I get to meet a lot of interesting organizations, work with tribal leadership, and I do a lot of trainings that run the gamut from roles and responsibilities of the board of directors to tribal council members, grants management, a variety of HR issues, with day-to-day operations within organizations, from budget construction, budget monitoring, all the way to programmatic excellence. And then in addition to that, I am a contracted consultant with an organization known as the National Urban Indian Family Coalition. So that's kind of what I do for a living. And then along the way, I've been tapped to serve on a lot of boards. I did a 3-year term for the Greater Kansas City UNIA, as on the board of directors there, representing our community. I currently serve on the boards of directors of some local indigenous nonprofits, the Native American Community Clinic, HRSA Grant Clinic. I have served as the board chair for that organization. The Native American Community Development Institute, otherwise known as NACD. I am on the board of directors there. And then in St. Paul, an organization known as Inda Young Center, or it's a Anishinaabe for our home, it's crisis housing for indigenous youth. I serve on the board of directors there as well. So I like to keep busy. I like to contribute what I can for the community. And it's my role as a contracted consultant with the NUIC that brought me into contact here with the AIC. And so they brought me in to do a couple of things. One was to provide training for the board of directors, which typically is about a 3 full days worth of training. So we only had a limited amount of time, and so we kind of cherry picked those core competencies that are most important for board members to have at their disposal, because serving on a board of directors is a unique experience, and it requires some unique skill sets. And then in addition to the training aspect, I was also brought in a consulting manner too. So I observed the board of directors meetings and had discussions with Melody and with Cente and offered what my advice or my 2 cents was. And in that respect, all I'm really doing is drawing upon my education, my professional experience, and the work that I do in my consulting work, and offer up what are considered best practices. But I'm not really here to tell what this organization should do. I can only recommend. It's ultimately up to the organization to decide how they move forward. I can bring the depth and breadth of my experience to say, here's what other folks are doing, here's what seems to work, or here's what other problems other organizations encountered, and here's what they did to try to overcome it, and present that to Cente and to Melody as information to help them make informed decisions about how to guide this organization. So a word about the National Urban Indian Family Coalition. The executive director, Janine Pomino, couldn't be with us this weekend. She sends her regards. It is based in Seattle, Washington, and Janine is actually the founding executive director of the NUIC. And the American Indian Center Chicago is one of the founding centers that gave birth to the NUIC. The NUIC is comprised of urban centers or urban Native organizations. And they work in close collaboration and kind of coordinated through Janine's office for a variety of activities, some of which we're talking about today. The census work, get out the vote, along with technical assistance to help nonprofits receive consultation and trainings as well. The NUIC has been in close contact with the AIC, providing work, strategic planning sessions and other consulting with some heavy lifts, I believe in 2010, 12, and 19. And since 2018, the NUIC has funded the AIC well over $100,000. So it just really speaks to Janine and the NUIC's belief in this organization, the value and the importance that it has for the community. And then with recent events, with the changeover in the executive director position, the changeover in the natural processes in the board of directors here at the AIC, they contacted me and said, Joe, would you be willing to go in and work with the AIC? And this was back in November, roughly. So we began this process of working together in December, where then I provided a 2-hour training on at least four core competencies to serve on a board of directors, understanding policy governance and the separation of duties with staff and day-to-day operations, what's otherwise known as the firewall, understanding the role that the board has in supporting and working with the executive director, the key fiduciary responsibility of a board of directors, what that means, what those responsibilities are, and what are the best practices to get after it. And then finally, communication practices by the board of directors, both internally and externally, how that works. Now that's the tip of the iceberg. There's, like I said, there's a lot more that can be talked about and discussed, but we wanted to start there because we believe those are core competencies for anybody serving on a board of directors. In the conclusion of this work, I submitted a report to Cente, which you guys are sure have access to, that included recommendations that I had based on my experience and knowledge base that I think would serve the AIC well. But again, let me qualify this. This isn't me telling you what you need to do. These are my recommendations, and it's up to you to decide. You can take them and use them. You can take them and modify them and make them your own, or you can chuck them out the window. It's up to you. That's you express your sovereignty in your organization that way. So without much else to say, I think I could field some questions here about the observations. Otherwise, I could kind of turn it back to Cente. Yes, sir.
With regards to the firewall of the board and the day-to-day operations, is your recommendations go as far as to design policy?
Well, I mean, it's what's that? Okay, so the question, if I understood correctly, was in the understanding of firewall between day-to-day operations and policy governance of the board of directors, does it go as far to prescribe policies to be enacted? Is my understanding correct? Did I paraphrase it correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. There are recommendations about how to enact that, but policy development by the board has to be generated by the board itself. It's just best practice to maintain that firewall, because if you don't, it can open up Pandora's box of trouble for the staff and how they function, for the board, and it can go down some really dark avenues, particularly when you get into potential litigation and exposure to the organization itself. So having these folks stay in their lane not only prevents those troubles, but really goes a long way to securing a healthy and properly functioning organization. It's kind of like, I'm a sports fan. Unfortunately, I'm a Vikings fan, which is more of a curse than anything. But that's all right. Hey, pick a man when he's down. That's fine. But you know, the quarterback doesn't run out and then play defense. He just doesn't put his helmet on and say, I'm going out there. The coach, the offensive coordinator doesn't just show up in the middle of the huddle and say, you know what, snap the ball to me, I'm going to run the play. Everybody knows their role. Everybody has a defined, clear role and responsibility. And everybody needs to stay in their lane and execute their jobs. And when they do, it comes together. It's a harmonized organism almost that's functioning together. No one's trying to overstep their bounds because they got plenty to do where they're at. The trick is making sure folks understand that. So if they get to like having to have prescriptive policies to enforce that, you know, sometimes it's been necessary. Usually it's enforced with those roles and responsibilities. And those I think is the starting point. Like here is where you fit into this matter. So that's a great question. And any other questions?
Okay, so we had some questions online. One question was, what was some of your recommendations to the board?
Yeah, so some of the recommendations that I had to the board is that there was some, again, from observations, about clarity of the board packets coming forward. There was board packets that were produced, but it should be reflected in the agendas that are coming forward to make sure that we're always covering those key areas that need to be discussed. Finances, program performance, fundraising activities, community events, they really should mirror one another. So when that recommendation came out at the meeting that I participated in, the agenda didn't quite reflect the board packet, and I was issued one. So I said, well, you need to have board packets. Well, Melody set me straight quite well. So that was one. There's some, I think that there's a need for additional training in the parliamentary procedure. So in Indian country, we do adopt Robert's Rules of Order, but it is a Western European construct. So if there are indigenized practices for how you run meetings and observe speakers and record that, that's fine too. That's an expression of our sovereignty, but there needs to be some path chosen on and then training on it. In my experience in Indian country, it's just kind of a default status to go to Robert's Rules of Order, you know what, make a motion, who seconds it, discussion, yada, yada, yada. Because at the tribal level, that state-to-state relationship with the federal government, you're speaking the federal government's language. That's how they document their meetings. And so that's why they kind of default to that. But again, it's up to your organization to decide. And there are indigenous models that can be utilized. So whatever you do pick, I would just say pick one, learn it, live it, be it, and make sure everyone is trained. So that was another recommendation I kind of had going forward. I think another one that'd be worthwhile, it kind of gets into the minutia a little bit, is the specifics of how the meeting is conducted. Particularly around minutes, who should be reporting them, accessibility to minutes. So I had some recommendations in there as well. And again, what I observed, I didn't believe that there's anything so noxious that you guys are in a heap of trouble. I would really more characterize it as, these are refinements, areas for fine tuning that's going to make the system work better, reduce stress, add clarity. You know, those are all kind of good things. So that was just kind of encapsulating some of the recommendations.
We had another question that comes in that says, what does OIC mean for your American Indian OIC?
Yeah, Opportunities and Industrialization Center. It's a throwback term to the mid-1960s. We are a part of a national network that started in the African American community. Our founder, Clyde Bellacourt, was also a co-founder of the American Indian movement, who was on my board of directors. Wanted an indigenized version of this job force, workforce development organization. And he fought hard in the mid-70s and got it. And we were incorporated in 1979. But yeah, what is the whole? So I'm Lakota. So oftentimes I get people coming in, particularly the elders, and they say, hey, Joe, you know what the OIC stands for? And I know it says, it means Ojibwe is in charge. So it's going to be like that.
Any other questions for Dr. Hobart in the room, online, on Zoom?
Okay, well, you guys are doing great work here. Just want to close by saying, from my experience, admittedly limited, but the experience I've had working with AIC, I think that the leadership, both at the board level and in Melody is the right leadership for this moment in time. And I think you guys are going in the right direction. It's a process. It's not going to go 100% smooth all the way, but this process is underway, and I feel confident by what I've seen. So I'll close on that.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Thank
Hall.
you.
All right. So last but certainly not least, we are going to close with the lovely Brandy Liberty of Morningstar Consulting. That's her beautiful English version. Brandy is actually kind of got a couple multi-purpose multi-prong jobs here with AIC, one of which is a transitional strategic plan on how we plan to move from where we are to the long-term strategic plan, that 3 to 5 year strategic plan that's going to get us to where we need to be for the bigger grants, the bigger federal funding. Brandy's also here to talk about some strategic planning, the needs assessment, SWOT analysis. So with that being said, Brandy,
thanks, Melody. So thank you guys all for joining us this afternoon. I know it's kind of been a long day, but I am very happy to be here. This is my first trip in the last year in person across Indian country. So for me, it is a blessing to get out of my home and in person with everybody. So, I appreciate the efforts that AIC is doing to start bringing people back in, being able to be in person, just like the rest of the world. We've had so much change happening over the last year, individually, within our organization here at AIC. And so, Melody has done a great job of kind of heading up that transition here for the organization, which is why she brought me on to, first and foremost, help with that transition process, leading the organization and, determining what the initial needs are of transforming AIC, kind of what everybody spoke about today, and bringing things, more transparency, moving into having a permanent executive director, governance training and all of those sorts of things. And so, that is kind of my initial scope over the next month, is to kind of help AIC develop that plan for transition. And then longer term, looking at what the overall needs of the organization are and developing a strategic plan with the organizational goals and objectives in mind that come from those needs assessments. So what we would like to do here in late April is, have a town hall meeting where I will be here in person to also assist in handing out a needs assessment to all of you guys to really find out what the community needs. We'll make it available online as well for those that can't participate in person, where you'll have an opportunity to discuss, all of the different aspects, that you feel that the Indian community here in Chicago needs, and what AIC can hopefully in the future develop programs to assist and provide those needs for all of you long term. At the same time, I hope to develop focus groups. So if you guys have ideas for any types of focus groups that you'd like to see throughout the strategic planning process, feel free to let Melody know. My contact info will be up in a few minutes as well, in order for you guys to, email it to me as well. If you'd rather be more anonymous and stuff, I don't mind getting emails from any of you guys, because this is a community organization and we want everyone involved in this process. And so that is my goal, is to make sure, everyone here's voice is heard. A lot of these things, we're going to have, we have some guidelines for success that we've already planned out. Melanie and I meet weekly, her and myself, for sure. Sometimes we involve the staff. Sometimes, my plan is to also start involving the board in some of those monthly meetings as well, to really lay out that foundation of what the needs are for the organization. And then from there, our next, thing that we'll be looking at is, where should we be going? Asking that question, and asking all of you that same question. Where do you feel AIC needs to go? We'll develop a SWOT analysis where we look at the strengths and weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats of the organization, I know we've talked about some of those things already today. So, that SWOT analysis is already well on its way being developed. My hope is when I do the needs assessment as well, is to also put a section in there for SWOT, just to find out from each individual what you feel those same strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are to each of you as well within the AIC. We'll do, more on-site planning workshops. Again, I thankfully just got fully vaccinated, so I'm well happy to come out Indian country and visit, be here on site, and so, not only will I be here working with Melody and her staff in person, but again, like I said, the town halls, we'll probably try to do some strategic planning sessions with some of you as well, through all of this. But some of our top priorities, long-term are going to be looking at that long-term strategic plan. We've already started developing things with Dr. Hobart as far as governance and bylaws with his recommendations that'll also go into that strategic plan. We'll look at, professional development, the membership, organizational capacity as well is an important aspect, determining what the needs are of our organization and how the strengths of the individuals working within the organization and our board can help us move forward. Capacity is a very important subject and area where when you're writing grants, that's one of the first things they want to see. They want to know that you have a sustainable organization with staff and boards that can work together. Melody kind of spoke about it a little bit earlier. That is a lot of the grants that I write out here in Indian country is the #1 rating factor out there in the federal grant system is capacity of your organization. So we'll look at that. We'll also look at developing, a staffing plan, determining, what positions are needed, as we determine what programs are needed by this needs assessment, we'll be able to really lay out a foundation of what kind of staff you need to run these programs. And in addition to the staffing plan, we'll be able to look at, individual committees that are going to be developed to help the staff with the oversight of those programmatic activities that can come from all of these funding opportunities that are out there. We'll also look at, what types of policies need to be developed. Dr. Hobart talked a little bit, in regards to the governance related policies, but internal policies as well, as far as, things as simple as, employee policy and procedure manuals, all the way up to specific policies related to your programs and how you work those programs with the individuals in the community. We'll look at compliance and communication, making sure that there is transparency. Today, you guys got to see the books and got to see where the numbers stand. And we'll be able to use that, moving forward as we develop the strategic plan as well. Other things that we're looking at in this long-term strategic plan, website development, as Melody spoke about, marketing, getting the AIC out there more in the community. Let's see, what else? Looking at what your current programming is, and expanding those out to future programs. We'll also really dive deep in what a funding strategy is. I will work with Cheer on determining, where our funds are, what we need to support all of these programs, and help lay out a foundation for those future funding opportunities, whether it be, from fundraising to applying for, local, state, and federal grants. We're going to look at enhancing the community relations and partnerships. I know a lot of that is happening right now currently, and looking at the board meetings. There's been meetings with the mayor and other entities within the community, and that is great. Also, expanding, out to other foundations, outside of, within the Chicago area and outward, even across Indian country with other tribes and things like that. Melody spoke about the building enhancements. I mean, when you guys walked in the door, you can see the change that is happening here just physically within the AIC. And those things are going to be part of the long-term strategic plan as we grow and develop all of these things out. In addition to that strategic plan, we will have an action plan. It does no good to have a plan in place and then no action to go along with it. And so I will help develop an action plan on, answering, what actions and changes will occur, who's going to be responsible for each of those activities and follow up on all of that. What resources are needed, what kind of money is needed, do we need community support, those sorts of things. And then the communication for that, it'll be something that's very transparent. My goal is to have the strategic plan on the new website when it is created in order for everyone to see what's happening. Also, my biggest recommendation with the strategic plan will be every year that it's sat down and looked at, that there is prior to this annual meeting where we can see what things have been accomplished, what things have not been accomplished that might have been set for an immediate goal and why, and kind of report on that performance. And then make any changes if need be, because it should be a fluid plan as well. Sometimes, there are obstacles that get in the way. Again, last year's strategic plan, our previous strategic plan probably ceased for almost a year because of a pandemic, things, that are out of our control. And so, I want to ensure that, as we have, that fluid motion of a strategic plan, that we have actions and rules in place in order to keep it going, and that we don't ever have to stop. We got one more slide, right? Yeah. Let me talk about mostly a little bit. Again, capacity is important for any organization. We want, AIC to survive. We want us to be long term. You guys are the longest standing organization, American Indian Center within the country, and we want to stay that way. We want to continue here. You guys are doing great work in the Chicago area, and without all of you here in the community that has worked with the AIC over the years, we wouldn't have an AIC. And so it is important to have that vested interest as community stakeholders in this entire process. And so I want to thank you guys all for allowing me to be here today with all of you and allowing me to work with you all. If you guys have any questions, I'm open for those. And again, my contact information is up here, will be up here as well. Take that down and reach out to me or get it from Melody. And anything that you want input on or want to provide input on as we go through this process, feel free to reach out. Anyone have any questions?
Any questions from the Zoom participants online? Please type them into the chat box. Any questions?
All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brandy. All right, guys. So now is the time for the AIC board presentation. We're going to be have this presentation led by our board president, Cente Moore.
Okay, I'm coming. Okay, so I'll try to speak loud enough for Zoom. Okay, so first of all, thank you all. My name is Cente Moore. I'm the current current president of your American Indian Center board. For those of you who do not know me, I'm an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation. I'm also African American. I was voted onto this board in February of 2019. I have been proudly serving I previously served as your vice president and this past year as your president. I thank you for the opportunity for me to maintain this leadership role for the organization. I have one more year for my current term. And first of all, I want to thank you to all of our special guests. As you can see, our organization is intentional about change. We know there has been a lot of transitions within this organization within the past year. We know that there are a lot of questions about what's happening with this, what's happening with that. We are trying to be as transparent as possible. And we, as mentioned before, we just ask for grace. Give us patience. We're doing our best here. But for today's presentation, I wanted to just share a couple of things just to discuss what has happened with the board itself in the past year and where is the board going. Dr. Hobart talked a lot about the training that he has provided us in the last couple months, which has been amazing, because I want to make it very clear. I don't know everything. I do not have every answer. Melody doesn't know everything. She does not have every answer. That's why we hired these professionals to come in and give us the guidance, who have the experience, who will help us to lead this organization forward. Within the past year, we have 4 board members resign from the organization between the months of August and November. I thank all of those board members who previously have served. Some of them are still here on the meeting with us. I thank them for their time in volunteering to continue to move this organization forward. We have appointed all new members to those 4 seats that were empty. Those individuals, we've made public notices. They have been identified to serve out those respective board member terms. Thank you to Norma, she's here in person. We had another board member who actually ended his appointed term today. Another thing that, as Dr. Joe Hobart said, is that we received governance training this past January in 2021. I think it's important for us to realize sometimes we don't have all the answers and we need some structure and guidance. As we bring on 4 new board members today, do understand that we will continue to be trained as a board. I know that a lot of people have criticized the board for not knowing things and not properly running things. I hope that with this continued training from an amazing professional who has a ton of experience, who's also being funded by one of our grant funders. They funded him to come here to train us because they want us to succeed as a board leadership for you all. And again, we will continue to, we plan to bring Dr. Hobart into at least quarterly at a bare minimum. So all new board members will continue to receive this proper training and helping us to understand our role and to fulfill our duties. One thing that I really want to stress is that we are going to be more intentional about the work of the committees of this organization. The board, in my opinion, is responsible for too many day-to-day decisions of AIC. We should not be responsible for day-to-day policies, procedures, for what happens in this scenario. And that's why we have seen a lot of strife and contention, because currently our bylaws gives the responsibility, well, the board decides it. It's up to the board. The committees, in my opinion, should be the ones doing the work. There should be a group of community members or talking about membership. It should be a group of community members teaching about bylaws and making those recommendations. It should be the community members deciding and giving recommendations for programming. All those responsibilities should not be only of the board. So moving forward, the committees will be the ones. That's what the job of committees are to do, are to develop, to meet, to talk about. You'll be meeting with Miss Liberty. We'll be getting information from our needs assessment so that we know what guidance these committees need to focus on. So a lot of the bylaws says the board should decide this, the board should decide that. Well, guess what? The board hasn't made many great decisions. So I want to bring the committees and make the committees the ones to do that work. So please, we will be posting committees. It's completely open to the public. We welcome everyone. We want your input. So when you say that I'm not heard, we want you to come to the committee meeting so that you can give your input, so that you can share your recommendations with us. So please know that the committees will be the guiding force of our organization. The board will just sit to maintain our fiduciary responsibility, to make sure the money is coming in, to make sure it's properly spent, to make sure we're not breaking any laws. That's the job of the board. The board should not be deciding if we have an Easter event, if this person gets fired. That's not our job. So I want to make sure that you know we want you all to participate and to give your input at the committee level. Now, I do want to share our bylaws committee. We've had committees meeting within the past couple of weeks. They have been posted. Again, we would love for you all to share. But today, I am happy to announce that the bylaw committee has amendments that we are proposing to the board to finally be updated and changed, because our bylaws have a lot of issues. We know that. We know that there are a lot of unanswered questions. We know that there's a lot of vagueness. We know that there's information that leaves up, leaves an open area and is subject to someone's own understanding. So the bylaws committee is meeting and is intentional about updating our bylaws. We've had so many challenges to our bylaws, and they are all challenges. Every question that has come up about our bylaws is 100% valid. So the first amendment that we are proposing to the board is to update the address. Very simple. In our current bylaws, our old building at 1630 West Wilson, that address is still reflected in the bylaws. We're no longer there. We're here at 3401 West Ainsley 4, as long as we determine we need to be here. So the first amendment that we're proposing is to update that in Article 3, Section 1, as well as in Article 5, Section 1, where the old building address is listed. We want to update that to our current address. Now, the second proposal is to clarify who can be a voting member. Wouldn't you agree that every year we get challenged about who can vote in this election? Every single year we have a challenge. Why? Because our bylaws are not clear. Our bylaws give responsibility to people who should not be responsible. So I wanted to put on the screen to show you what our bylaws currently say. So this is what they currently show, that a voting member is, all it says is that they have to be American Indian, that they have to be 16 years of age, that they agree to the Articles of Incorporation, and that the board of directors may adopt a voting member. Let's see, and then it talks about descendancy. And then it says, in cases of dispute, the board of directors should establish procedures about how to apply as American Indian. Why is the board deciding who's American Indian? That is not our job. That is not our responsibility. We are not a federal or state tribal nation. That is not for us to determine you're Native and you're not. That is something that absolutely no board should be responsible for. So the proposal is to clarify as best as we can right now who can be a voting member. The first part is to identify and expand that definition beyond American Indian. We want to recognize anyone who is part of a state or federally recognized American Indian tribe, Alaskan Native, Native Hawaiian, and First Nations to accurately represent the majority of the indigenous populations that we serve. Now I know before you have a question, we understand that nomenclature is an issue here, but we looked at, if you are an American Indian looking for services because of your status, whether it's at a health center, whether it's at your community center, whether it's on your reservation, what do they look at? What do they ask you? Are you part of one of these? Now, can that be expanded in the future? Probably so. But right now, we wanted to clarify and expand who these individuals are. Now, that's the first requirement. Or, there's a big OR, or you could be a descendant of a tribe, meaning you share proof of recognition of your parent, a grandparent that also is one of those state or federally recognized American Indian, Alaskan Native, Native Hawaiian, and First Nations. So if you yourself are not enrolled, then you would also be able to show proof by descendancy. And again, recognition, that's enrollment, membership. We know that every tribe defines that differently, but that's how we will start to look to determine who can actually vote. The other proposal was to increase the age of a voter to age 18. In the bylaws, it currently states that someone must be 16 years of age. We believe, as anywhere else, you need to be an adult to vote into the elections, to vote on any government procedure. That does not mean that youth voices do not matter. What that means is that we can incorporate youth voices elsewhere. But because of the responsibility of a voting member, we feel that that should be a person who is actually an adult. As everywhere in the country, age 18 is a requirement of an adult. The fourth one is obviously, I think it's maintained the same as who agrees to pay the dues as determined by the board of directors. And then the last line item was who agrees to be bound by these bylaws and other rules or regulations of the organization. So with that, we wanted to take out Articles of Incorporation was listed there. There's nothing to be bound in regards to our Articles of Incorporation. So we wanted to clarify that particular point there. The other proposal that we wanted to move is on Section 2 of a voting member. Is it said that the procedures and appointment to membership by a board of directors, we want to remove that altogether.
The board of directors does not need to decide anything differently to help determine how you become a member, or again, to help determine whether you're native or not native. That appointment does not need to come from the board of directors. It either meets the requirement or it doesn't. The board doesn't need to come in and change or make any other choice. So that was something that we felt that we wanted to adjust as well. And then also, we wanted to talk about membership cards. We know that in the past, our community members have been upset because we have not issued membership cards as an organization for years. I want to tell you, so right now, our current bylaws state that membership cards will be provided by the board of directors, and the board of directors will issue it if it's replaced. And the key word is that they might do it. And that's why it hasn't happened, because the board said, well, we probably won't do it this year. Moving forward, that's not an option. Membership cards will be provided every single year to every member of the organization. It's not they may provide, they shall provide. We will provide the issuance of membership cards for the American Indian Center. And the membership will be determined by the membership committee, not by the board of directors. The membership committee will determine how to apply for membership, what goes on the card, all those things. So again, I want to reiterate the fact that the members and these committees will be doing that work for us. The demographic information, your tribal affiliation, when your card was issued, those things will all be on your membership card. It'll also be on the records of the organization. And guess what? If you lose a card, if it becomes lost, then that will be reissued to you by the organization. So I hope that with a couple adjustments, trust me, we have a lot of work to do on our bylaws, but I hope that these few changes right now will help us to move forward in understanding who can vote at our meetings, understanding that we want to implement membership cards back into the organization and back into your hands as community members, and that we want to accurately reflect the building that we are in, the building that we own. And as I wrap up, the last thing I wanted to share is that we are intentional about getting information back from you. As Melody mentioned earlier, there's a lot of anonymous emails and letters going and spreading about the community, about our organization, about our leaders, about our staff. We want to hear from you. And I believe people are doing that because they don't feel heard. They feel that they're not being listened to. We've created a new email address, input@aicchicago.org. If you want to submit any questions to the organization, if you have any concerns, comments, feedback, suggestions, we want to give you an opportunity to submit that information specifically so that we can hear you. We don't want you posting nasty, negative things about us on Facebook. Talk to us. Send us an email. We will acknowledge you. We want to give you a space to be heard. This organization is not to exclude anyone. As we develop the website, there will also be a section on the website where you can go in and anonymously submit the same information. Obviously, that's being developed right now, but right now, if you have questions, feedback, anything that you want the leadership of this organization to hear from you, please send it in an email to input@aicchicago.org. Also, though, keep in mind, even if you submit the information, we'll do our best to accommodate. We want to get that feedback, but please don't have the expectation that everything you put down, we can change. We want to hear it. If we get enough people saying, Shantae, I want to paint the gym blue, we can't ignore that. So that's the type of information that we're looking forward to collect. And we hope that people will use that as a resource to share their concerns about our organization instead of sending malicious and vile, disgusting content out to our community. Again, we will not tolerate that lateral violence any longer. There is a way to get your point across and still be at peace with your peers. We should love on one another. We should love this organization. And whether you have something negative or positive to say, please go through an appropriate channel to share that information, because then we can't deny it. Then we can publicly record it. Then we could take that information of collectively what everyone is thinking, not just a handful of people, because I know not everyone in our community agrees with those communications that have been going out. We want to hear from the greater majority of our community about what they care, what they like about our organization. So I hope having that input at aicchicago.org will allow you to at least share with us. We do not want to exclude anybody. And that's what people say. They say I'm not welcome. They say that I don't feel safe. We are changing that narrative. AIC is moving forward, and we are going to change those things. We are going to take the lead in our community to stop and end this lateral violence. That's all I have to share. Any questions from anyone? Any questions online? Okay, we have someone to correct descendant. We'll correct the spelling of that. Thank you. Thank you. I was thinking of Descendants that my girls watch on Disney. Okay, thank you. Anyone? Any other questions? Yes, Vince? Mhm. Yeah, so for those online, the comment was made that when in regard to the recent, illicit communications that have been sent out, the defaming emails, that he hopes that basically that they can be held accountable, that the organization can hold these individuals accountable, whether it's cyberbullying, whether it's social media posting, whether it's sending out anonymous emails, that we will find and hold these individuals accountable through our organization. I don't know if you want to share some of that.
I was a little emotional earlier because that stuff affects my kids. I got special needs kids. I have beautiful children, as most of us do, and that stuff gets personal. And the AIC is committing to changing the code of conduct moving forward from today. The lateral violence stops here today. And I'm letting it be known that as of today, when we start, the new policy will be that if you disparage another member and that member comes to us, you will receive a warning. You will not, if the lateral violence continues, you'll get a second warning. If it continues again, we will go through the membership committee and we will ask for either suspension or ban you from the AIC. The lateral violence will stop because we will start holding people accountable to their behavior. I think if we come together as a community and we hold each other up in favor and in love and actually use our traditions the way that they're meant, because there's no tribal nation that taught somebody that vile, nasty language or that vile, nasty behavior to talk about people and their kids and their troubles. Nobody. So AIC is committing now to holding people accountable, their behaviors accountable. And we have a membership committee, and so we are asking our community now in this meeting, start signing up for a membership committee. Start signing up so that you have a voice. Sign up so that you can help us shape what you want us to be moving forward. That's all I have. Thank you.
So we can move into, first of all, thank you all. We're overdue on the meeting because we started late. We still want to move into the public comment section. Yeah. If there are any individuals in person who have any public comments that they would like to submit, please, you can raise your hand in person and let us know, and we will get a piece of paper for you. I just want to remind you of the public comments procedure that, well, we didn't request a comment card, so we'll look for that. We'll try to answer 7 comments within a 15-minute time frame. We request that people maintain their in-person. If you're in person, we ask that you maintain your comment to 2 minutes each. If the comment, we request that it be related to programs of AIC, to AIC staff, AIC board of directors, relevant only to the past year, past 2020. And then if a comment, if it's irrelevant, if it's repetitious or disruptive, we will end those comments. Again, we will not proceed to let this lateral violence continue. Other comments, you can continue to submit them. We've received questions that are not appropriate to answer on the chat. So if your comment has not been answered, that's because it was not appropriate for this setting. But you are welcome to add that information because it still will be documented for official record keeping of comments that we received during this meeting. So if there are any comments, you can type it into the Zoom. It will go straight to the panelists, those here at the organization. If you have, you could even type it into the Q&A section. If it's appropriate, we will try to answer it live. If there's any individuals in person, if you have a comment that you would like us or question that you would like us to address in person, please let us know. We'll just pause for a moment. If you have anything good to share, please let us know. It doesn't have to be negative. If you have a good comment that you would like us to share, please let us know as well. It would definitely be appreciated. Okay, so while we're waiting for any questions from the audience here in person, one question that was received earlier throughout the meeting was why hasn't the ED position been posted to the community? When can we expect that position to be posted? Melody, you want to come over here and answer that?
When speaking with a lot of our consultants, with the board, and really just looking at the state of our organization, we decided it was best because we needed to clean up a lot of things, you know, financials. We didn't feel it was fair in the history of the American Indian Center. The EDs are not usually somebody who, they're kind of people that are just thrust into the limelight, right? You know, oh, fine, I'll volunteer. Or nobody really wanted the job. I volunteered, and I, you know, when I was asked to serve, I served because I love this work. I've done community work and advocacy work for a really long time, and I understand that my job is an interim role. But my goal is to make sure that when we post this job, we're not scaring away the next ED. Our lifespan of executive directors within the American Indian Center are 3 to 4 years. It's stressful, the violence, the drama, the inaccuracies, the unqualified people that have been holding these positions. It has to stop. So I will help with the, you know, the guidance of our beautiful professionals. We're going to get this place up and running so that when we do that search, we are looking all across the city, the state, and Indian country for somebody to come in here to do the work for you. So I just wanted to be very clear that this is an interim role. I understand this is an interim role, but the importance of this work, this transitional work, is to make sure that our organization survives another 70 years. If we keep going, we won't be here another 70 months. Thank you.
Going to accept indigenous members from the Spanish-speaking communities or Spanish-speaking countries. It seems only North American Indians are accepted as members. So thank you for that comment. In our membership committee, we did start to have a conversation about our indigenous brothers and sisters in South America. But at this time, we feel that we want to clarify in North America, our current indigenous populations that we want to accept as membership. So at this time, not right now for that comment, but again, come to the membership committee, because if we have enough people coming saying we want our indigenous, Guatemalan, South American, those indigenous cultures who are indigenous to their countries, if we get enough feedback that that's what we want to serve here, then that's something we have to consider. But at this time, we're focusing on our North American Native populations. Yes. Here, come over here and say that part. They can't hear you.
Also, obviously we can't do that. We're equal opportunity as well. But just do some consulting work, talking about some of the people here that actually do federal work, some of that federal granting jobs. We have to be very intentional with the language, which was kind of why we were looking at that, because that actually helps our funding. We have to be in accordance with the federal law. ANA serves all 50 states. It serves Hawaii, it serves Guam, it serves the American Samoa. So if we're looking at some of these federal grants, DOJ grants, DOE grants, we have to be able to say that we're compliant with also those regulations as well. So just please be mindful that those are some of the reasons why we're trying to be very intentional in the language as we move forward.
Another comment came in about, it says, we were informed at our CAPS Albany Park Chicago Police District 17 meeting that AIC turned off their cameras. Can you explain why this was authorized? This causes a huge security and insurance issue. You want to address that?
But she will tell you that, and Cente can tell you, unfortunately, that former members of staff here hacked into our camera system, and we were no longer safe. We were being watched and we were being monitored, and we couldn't get in. We reached out to the companies with the accounts of the cameras that we owned, and they changed their passwords, they changed the security, they changed credit cards. We haven't been able to access the cameras. So in order to provide safety actually for our community and the people that happen to be in the building, whether it's our youth that have to come in, elders that come in for an emergency food basket, or any other purpose, the reason why they are off, and we're not obligated to have them, so please let's be very mindful, they're a plus, they're not a requirement. We are working on new security systems so that we can actually properly keep you guys safe. I didn't think, as the executive director, and when we talked about it over the board, not a board meeting, that anybody wanted to be recorded and not know who was actually watching, whatever it was. Not that anything inappropriate is happening here, but we just didn't think that that was safe for our community. So we will be upgrading a lot of things, again, over time. And as Chair explained to you, we have to bring in the funding. The more grants we get, the more cooperative our organization can be with the community, the more things that we can write for, so that we can put us back where we need to be, in a safe space. Thank you.
So the question online from the audience here was, will there be a code of conduct committee?
Actually address the code of conduct within bylaws and the membership committee. I think if they work together with one another, AIC has a code of conduct. It's been posted. It's actually in our building. It's throughout the building. It's in the bathrooms. It's in our hallways. Well, maybe not our hallways now. We just painted them, but We actually plan on kind of putting it on a little permanent plaque, so when you see it, when you walk in the door. These are some things that we've talked about on the membership committee about how we want to move forward as an organization and hold our members accountable. So maybe we just add that to the membership committee.
Well, Melody's getting the next question. We had a comment that says, thank you for serving community, hoping the best for AIC and the community going forward. Another comment was, I appreciate calling out lateral violence, and as a former board member and interim board president, I fully support efforts toward the wellness of our community. Looking forward to our near future and beyond. Another comment was, I appreciate the work the board and interim ED are putting in. It can only get better with the positive changes you all are implementing. Thank you all for those positive comments.
We actually got something else. It says, I am so proud to the current leadership and staff, and equally proud of anyone who has felt they needed to suggest and challenge/correct the AIC. Please use the correct channels to promote change and submit comments. If that's not good enough, change the procedures and process. So we welcome that. Again, I know Shantae's mentioned it. I talked about it earlier. We're not here to reprimand people. We're nobody's, I mean, we're parents to our own children, but we're not parents to our community members, our community members. Again, I apologize for the pain that has been inflicted on our community for decades and for years. I didn't do it, but I feel it in my spirit, and I feel that I have to apologize because people have been hurt. I recognize that, I understand that, I have heard it from you all that have spoken to me. Thank you for speaking to me. And I just want to say that I can't go back and heal that hurt, but what I can help now is to put us on a healing journey to move forward. Put those programs together, we can start healing, and I'm looking forward to all of your comments on how we can all work together as a community. Thank you.
So we have another question on Zoom. It says, have you talked with the FBI cybersecurity concerning the violent emails? No, we have not. We have not. And then another question, where is the transparency to the community? AIC is using money to pay attorneys to take community to court. Thank you for that question. I actually failed to put that in my report. So for those of you who know, we've been in a legal lawsuit since 2019. At this time, our recent court meeting, we were referred to mediation. So both sides are finally leaving the courtroom, and we're hoping that we can work out our differences in mediation with the other group of community members. So we're finally glad to be at that peak, at that place where we can mediate. Our goal is to end these court proceedings as quickly as possible. But for the record, AIC has dropped any claims against that group of individuals. We have no claims in courts against them. Right now, the current court proceedings are us responding to their claims because they have countersued the AIC. So that's the only thing that we're in court for, is because they've countersued us. Now we're currently addressing their counterclaims. At this point, the AIC has dropped anything that we have taken into the courts. So I did want to provide that update. So thank you for that question. Let me check for any other questions. We'll take this, I guess, as the last question that came in. How is the AIC helping our community in Albany Park? It seems the AIC isn't a great neighbor. The AIC has been curiously absent from the Chamber of Commerce meetings, Albany Park CTA meetings, CAPS meetings, and the Albany Mutual Aid meetings that the previous executive director always attended. I'll start that and Melody will finish it. So as you know, we've been in transition. So we are still learning several affiliations that the AIC was a part of. If we were a part of meetings, if we were a part of a committee somewhere, some of that information we're still learning. We feel it's more important to address our internal organization before we get out to Albany Park. We have a lot to work on here internally for the AIC, but we do want to be a good neighbor in Albany Park. We do want to have this be a respected and a highly honorable organization within our neighborhood here. And we hope that if it makes sense for us to regain association with those organizations and to have AIC have a seat at those tables, we absolutely will do so.
it's honestly, we probably just weren't aware that those are meetings that she was attending on our behalf. If you wanted to add anything extra.
And the input from the community has always been, why are we worried about everybody else and not our community? So I'm trying to change that focus on bringing that back, and we take care of ourselves for just a minute, we refocus, we work on that internal structure, we work on putting our community members first, and then we can start doing additional outreach. We apologize if it feels that we're not good neighbors, but I think at this time, we really have to look at ourselves and start helping our organization or helping our community members. Thank you.
A bit more about the proposal to change the voting age from 16 to 18. The U.S. government and state of Illinois consider 18 to be the age of adulthood, but must our community follow the exact same protocols at the U.S.? So I would answer that. Or you want to answer? Go ahead.
As stated, I know a couple of our consultants have talked to us about it. I know that we've looked into some legal stuff here. We love our 16-year-old. I have one. Well, she just turned 17, but I have one. I've had 3. They're teenagers. The reality is some of these very large, and oh, just so you know, don't panic. Our ballot box is actually being sealed for the afternoon, as you guys can see. They're about to go ahead and seal the box. They're about to tape the box. They're about to initial the box. The box will be brought back by the third party. AIC has no, they will not be touching these ballots. Again, these are 2 people that have no affiliation to the American Indian Center. I'm going to get back to your question, I promise. But if you see activity happening with the box, because I can see it on the screen, again, no activity. They have nothing, no connections to anybody on staff or members or anything. So they will be securing that ballot box. That ballot box will be back on camera at 12:45. Membership registration and renewals will open up again at 1 p.m. It will go until 3:30 p.m. and the last person, we will be taking votes all the way up until 4. At such time, we will then open up the box because it is a sealed, screwed container. It's a box. Those votes will be counted at that point. So thank you for that. And then remind me of the question because I forgot because I've seen the ballot box moving. Oh, so 16 to 18. The fiduciary responsibilities are a big deal. And I think we've taken them for granted as a community. It's not that our 16-year-olds aren't smart or they're not brilliant or they're not brave or they're not courageous. But fiduciary responsibilities are a big deal. We just heard from our accountant that if it wasn't for one grant, we were hiding that we were running in the negative by hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was a grant that was written before they got here. It was a lie. If we have 16-year-olds voting on financial responsibilities, they don't even know what that means. We can't have 16-year-olds voting for aunties and grandmas and sisters and cousins because it's cool. The board is not a popularity contest. It needs to be people who are qualified that will do the work to make sure this organization survives for the next 70 years. We want to put together a youth advisory council. We want to listen to the youth's voices. But I don't think, a lot of people don't think, I'm a mom, and I'll tell you right now, my 17-year-old, she's smart as a whip, honors an AP. If you ask her what a fiduciary responsibility and what her role would be, she couldn't tell you because it's not her job to know. She's a kid. She's supposed to be going to school. So let our youth go to school and be educated. And then as they get older, we teach them, we mentor them, we put them in, we start a government council for our youth. Let's start these programs so that they can learn what it feels like to lead, to be social justice leaders, to be governmental leaders within our community. Let's build those programs for them so they can be responsible, educated voters for our community. Thank you.
our intentions are not to limit the youth voices. We plan to incorporate them in committee meetings and other youth council possibly. One last comment came in, which is related. It says, as a Native elder, it's very concerning that the age change is being suggested. I respect the other concerns raised, but the age change is adopting white culture and laws. We are sovereign people. Please don't advocate for adopting white culture and laws. Our 16 and 17-year-olds deserve to have their voices heard. So thank you for that comment. They do deserve to have their voices heard, and they will be heard. And I would just suggest come to the membership meeting and talk about that, because again, that's where the change will occur. That came out of the membership committee. So if you feel very strongly about that, attend the next membership committee. It'll be in April. I think that's it for now. Does anyone else have anything else they want to share? We are an hour overdue. Thank you so much. It's a membership committee. That's where that change came from. Thank you all so much for attending. Thank you all so much for attending today. We appreciate you hanging in there with us. We appreciate all of you all online for staying with us through our technical issues. We tried to, we tested everything ahead of time. It did not work. So thank you all so much. We are going to go ahead and end the Zoom meeting. Thank you all in person here, and please, committee meetings, please join us at our upcoming committee meetings and our future town halls. So thank you all.
Everyone jumps off, because our website is under construction. Please follow us on social media, Facebook. If you do not get Facebook, or you do not have Facebook, we are also reposting those things into smoke signals every 2 weeks. Everything is going out every 2 weeks from smoke signals. Update your email addresses. If you don't have social media, give us a call. We'll mail you out a packet. We are more than happy to, for anyone, if you hear it and you know an elder that can't or doesn't have technology, please give us a call. We will absolutely mail those things out, or we could drop off packets. Please let us know. We will try to accommodate everyone as best we can. Thank you so much. Oh, wait. What does it say about election voting only? Hold on real quick so we can clarify if they had a question. Oh,
Just election.
oh, okay. I was like, wait.
Okay, thank you all on Zoom. We appreciate you for joining us. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much, and thank you for your feedback. Can you end the meeting?